My guest is the worst person in the world. She's literally... She went to the bathroom like... When we walked in the building, I want to say 7 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago tops. And she went to the bathroom. And we sat down, we talked about some shit, drank some sparkling water, and then we were about to start recording again, and she said, I have to pay. So she's now urinating again. And because I'm the best podcaster in the world, I decided to start recording without her so that I could publicly shame her for her awfulness. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conservatish. I'll get some plugs in before. Go to patreon.com/conservatish to support this podcast and all my music and artistic endeavors. And follow me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. I'm on Facebook too, probably only temporarily. Yeah. Uh-oh. I think I hear him.
I got dressed and put on makeup for you.
That doesn't make up for the 58 P's you have had to... I started recording without you. So I could abso-fucking-lutely. So I could publicly shame you for what... So sit however you normally would like to.
I drink a lot and I have a small blood.
I'm glad that the world is now knowing you. So as long as... Sit wherever you'd like, just try to keep the mic like this far away from your mouth.
Okay.
It's like I'm tickling you or something. It's just a microphone, princess. You're just wearing headphones, that's all.
Okay, I like headphones.
Okay.
All right, I'm glad you remembered I was a princess.
How do you feel? Does that feel right?
That feels really good.
I'm giving you way too much power. I take it back, actually. We're going to stop the podcast and you're going to go home. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conservatish episode 37. Our guest today is the amazing Robi, Feliz, Saphyra. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Pete.
Absolutely. You and I have known each other a long time.
Way
at
too
least
long.
like 5 years, I think.
I think it's 6.
You think it's 6?
I think it's 6.
All right.
I think it's 6 because I was coming up on 27 and now it's 33. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
I know.
That's very cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How could I be that old?
I don't know.
I don't either. I don't either.
I didn't know humans could be that old. That's what
I didn't either, but you know, the black hairspray really helps.
Is that what it is? When did you start, if you don't mind asking, when did you start coloring your hair? Because I've been thinking about mine, my sweet, no, I'm just kidding.
Your sweet bald spot?
Exactly. I want to fucking spray it with like a, I don't know, sorry. Continue.
They have pink. Pink would be a really good color for you.
You think?
I do.
I'm manly enough to pull it off.
Yes, you are. I started coloring my hair when I was 16, and I started going gray when I was 25.
Really? Oh, that's just some...
Ooh.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
So when I was 16,
like a Steve Martin type of thing.
I don't know anything about Steve Martin.
He's been gray since he was like 17, man. He started graying really early.
My mother's mother started graying when she was young. I think. Well, I don't know because I'm dark. So
right.
I think that sometimes people with dark hair gray faster. And my mother and sisters are blonde.
Right.
And I think they have gray, but it doesn't look as gray as my hair because they're blonde, so it's lighter. Mm-hmm. So
you have an incredible history of life. In 75 years of life, of course, you've amassed.
Excuse me, it's 73, and I am well preserved. Okay, that's what I tell my customers at the restaurant. I go, I'm 73 years old and I'm well preserved.
You started coloring your hair at 25, but you started embalming at 16. So what was the? You grew up in New York originally.
I was born in New York, and I lived in New York till I was 8. I was born in Brooklyn, and then I grew up in New Jersey, near the Jersey Shore. You know,
like Wildwood area, or
no, a
more
little
north?
bit more north. Like think Bruce Springsteen, Asbury Park, Stone Pony.
Okay.
Bon Jovi, that era.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually about that exact same time.
Yeah.
So was those guys? Those were sacred, like already established. You have to like Springsteen. You have to like these. You
just like them. There was no. I mean,
did you
love?
To this day, if Bon Jovi came up to you and was like, "We're gonna get married," you would be like, "Oh."
I know. I actually partied with Bon Jovi. That's like my.
Did you really?
I did.
Wow.
I partied with Bon Jovi back in the day.
Back when you were getting high.
Back
in
when
the
I
80s?
was back in the early 80s.
Early 80s.
When I was getting high, and
Was he fun?
He was. He probably doesn't remember me.
No, probably not. There was a lot of ladies back then.
There was a lot of people. But yeah, he was, I don't, the truth is I don't know if he was fun. It was Bon Jovi.
Right.
It was like living on a prayer. So it was good.
Well, I wanted to have you on, obviously, because we're friends and stuff. We've known each other, but also, and we're close. We understand each other. But also because of, your experience with New York, and also your Jewish heritage, and also, you know a lot of that stuff that I have no fucking clue about. I just know that there are a lot of people with pink hair running around talking about free Palestine these days, and I have no fucking clue what all that shit means. And then also, I like having people on the podcast who who I get along with, and also who we have kind of a rapport and stuff. So, yeah, I feel a little strange right now. I'm not sure if my espresso has kicked in yet, but I'm gonna try to be entertaining.
Well, you keep trying.
Okay, I'm gonna fucking try.
My coffee has kicked in, and the Diet Coke is just slowly working on me.
There you go.
So
how are you?
You know what? I'm really good.
Yeah.
I'm actually better than I've been in a really long time. I'm in this calm, peaceful, amazing place, and I have these 2 kittens who've become the love of my life. You did not think that we were going to get away with having a podcast without me talking about cookies and cream.
But why so quickly?
Because,
why? It's just
because
you're a bothersome person.
Because that's why you love me. Cookies and cream.
Put the mic a little close. Stay where you were. Stay
closer?
Where. Yeah. There you go.
Oh, that's weird.
It's a fucking microphone.
I know.
Is it your fucking first time? Imagine it's Bon Jovi's dick. How's that? Just put a little.
His dick is probably small.
Oh, is it really?
I don't know. I don't remember.
No,
I was high. I don't think I did. I can't believe we just said that. Actually, I can. We are that close.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I did not think that we would get away with me talking about kukushka and kremushka, and they would.
Why?
Be very
oh my
upset.
God! You gave them the Yiddish names. Okay.
No, those are Russian. Well,
those are Russian. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the same thing.
It's the same thing. No, but I had to say goodbye, and they knew I was leaving, and I had to explain to them what I was doing, and we started an Instagram page.
Okay, that's good. So how can people follow Cookies and Cream?
Cookies and Kremushka.
Cookies and Kremushka.
Yes.
How do you spell Kremushka? Is that CREAMUSHKA? Okay.
And it's all one word. Cookies and Kremushka.
Well, that's good.
They want it's a private account, but I will accept anybody. That's kind of that, and that's kind of the story of my life.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of DMs that say "nice pussy," or as long as you are aware of that.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
as if you don't get them now. Hey, ho.
No, right. Not so much. Cookies and Cream get more action than
more. I respect that.
But no,
I don't get enough DMs that say "nice pussy" to me. So.
Oh my God.
So
there, Pete.
How upset were they that you? I mean, did they understand what a podcast is, or they?
They don't understand what a podcast is. So I recently went to Europe for 17 days, and
how was that?
Amazing. I used to live in Europe, and I lived many places.
Right.
And this trip was England and Scotland.
You see our homeboy Carl.
So our homeboy Carl, who's coming to visit
I
us.
want him to come on the podcast when he's in town.
He would love to. The only thing I have to warn you about Carl is that it's really hard to understand anything he says.
It is very interesting. He reminds me of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit.
Yes. And he has this very strong Yorkshire accent, but I've been able to deal with it. The way that I talk to him, because we talk fairly often, is if we FaceTime.
Right, because then you can kind of...
Then we FaceTime. But he's coming on January 17th, for 9 days.
Right.
I'm taking him to see the Harlem Globetrotters because he's never seen a live basketball game.
Are you serious?
I am.
Why would you bring him?
Because that's what he wants to do. And then we're going to go...
There's going to be there's going to be Wallace from Wallace and Gromit. You're fucking loud Jewish ass and 14 middle schoolers. That's all that Harlem Globetrotters.
And then we're going to go early for the pregame so that he could play basketball with.
But it's not really a game. They just they play some trick game and somebody else so that they can twirl the ball 58 different ways.
It's what he wants. It's what he wanted. He's British, we have to give him. Yeah, we love them. We have to forgive him. So
he's going to bring lots of cheese.
Oh, no, but he's...
Cracking toast, Gromit. Sorry. Continue.
Biscuits.
Yes, biscuits.
Biscuits. But no, so yes, I went and visited our homeboy Carl, and he by chance made this comment to me when we were planning the trip. The whole purpose of the trip was that I had a family wedding.
Oh, nice.
In Hendon, which is like the religious Jewish part of London. It's north of London. It's a suburb. And so I planned the trip around the wedding, and it built out from there. And he said, oh, it's not so far for us to drive to Scotland from where I live. And I was like, oh my God, we have to go. And he's like, all right, wait, it was just a comment.
Right, exactly,
and I was
right,
like, no. And then
this is why you don't give a mouse a cookie.
Exactly.
Nobody should be.
Exactly.
I've actually, this is what this 6 years have been. It's called a hostage. It's not a friendship. It's just, oh, now we're going to go. All right, continue. I got you a nice Coke Zero, okay?
You're amazing.
I paid my dues today.
It's amazing, Coke. You've paid your dues in other ways. It's okay.
We're not going to get real. Are we going to get real? Okay.
Well, we already got real.
All right, so you went up to Scotland.
Okay, so the trip was that I started out in his area, which he lives in a town. It took me so long to learn how to pronounce it. The name of the town he lives in is called Oswaldtwistle. Right.
I hate him.
So,
I hate him so much.
And then once you learn how to pronounce Oswaldtwistle, you have to drop the W and it's Oswaldtwistle. So
because that's how they pronounce it.
I don't know.
Okay.
And Oswaldtwistle is in the city of Accrington, which is in the county of Lancashire.
Okay.
So that's in the northwest. So I flew in to Manchester, went to Oswaldtwistle, then the next day took the train 5.5 hours all the way down to the southeast to visit friends of mine in Norwich.
5.5 hours.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get around the UK.
It's like fucking 2 blocks. Why is it so long?
I know.
Such a small ass island.
It's just, and then I took the train 5 hours back, and then we did a whole bunch of stuff. I got back on a Tuesday. We did a whole bunch of stuff. We saw a whole bunch of mutual friends. Some of the mutual friends that we both have.
How's David?
David, I didn't see. David didn't come around.
All right.
And then he works for this company that has been around for 100 years. So we went to this gala ball, and I went shopping with his 82-year-old Aunt Millie to buy a dress.
Very nice.
It was unbelievable. She was like this big, and you know me, I'm 5'8.5". I'm taller than everybody. Right. And at least there, and I wear 4-inch heels. So she was like teeny tiny. She was amazing.
So when I've talked about this, when my ex-girlfriends, who we both know, are friends with, when she went to China, anytime there's black people in that were in that town, they'd be walking around and people be like, oh, Kobe, you know. That's what I imagine you in Oswaldtwistle buying dresses. People would just come up like, wow,
like the American,
right? Exactly. But you stand out, is what I'm saying. Like
the American with this like dark hair,
a sore Jewish thumb,
basically, you know. So, this was really interesting.
Yes, ma'am.
Every person I saw in the stores, they would say 2 things to me. It was right around the fires here in California.
Right.
Because I went Thanksgiving, and they would say, "You don't like Trump, do you?" And then they would say, why did he say that thing that they have to rake the leaves in the fires? And then they would find out I was from California. They would be like, is everybody okay? You know, and it was without fail. And then they would say, what do you think of Brexit?
Why are they asking us? I barely...
Oh, well, you want to know what?
You do have opinions?
I have.
Surprise.
I have opinions, but you can't not have opinions when you're there because everyone's talking about it, so you got to find out.
That's what I didn't like. I mean, I haven't gone to Oswaldtwistle, but when I spent time in London, I did feel a bit like the PC culture was just a little much. It was a little like the royal looking down the nose has turned into like a social justice looking down the nose. Like they just move the same elitism has just transitioned
but I love
from
the royals.
No, I'm not saying we can hate the royals necessarily, but I'm just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a weird little like.
But it was different because I was only in London for a short time. I was really in like England.
Right.
So it was really different. Right. So then we did this we went to this gala ball, which was like a throwback to Downton Abbey.
What kind of dress did you have?
I wore a long green,
ooh,
teal green gown that was like very form-fitting with very high heels. Oh. And I had my hair done. Every single piece of hair was curled. It took 2 hours. I have a lot of hair. And It was amazing. I felt like a princess. And I took these pictures of like with this long staircase and I was sending them to my mother and she's like, it's like Downton Abbey. I'm like, I know. And I took pictures at the table with every man and I was like the American. I was the American.
Right, absolutely.
And it was so much fun. There was
this is what it is. This is what I'm letting you know because I know you and I are close enough for me to. I've talked about it many times. So I've decided recently over the last couple of years, I'm like, I started being more into the fact that I'm gonna have kids, and now I actually fucking want ones. Which I don't want to want ones, but I do. But this is what I'm saying. I'm gonna be cursed with like 4 daughters, and they're all gonna be as loud. As you. That's what just like everybody's, did you hear about Downton Abbey? You know, like.
But our friendship is going to help you immensely when you get to that point.
Oh my God.
I hope you're cursed with
because I can just hand them to you to just go without Robi.
And Robi the Fabulous.
Whatever.
I'm just telling you that.
So you're dressed in green.
So I was dressed in this gorgeous green dress, and I took pictures with all of the men at the table, and
okay.
Apparently, I danced by myself, and there's all these pictures. I was dancing with everybody. It was actually a lot of fun. And then the next day, we had a 5-hour workshop that we had put together. Mm-hmm. That was really great. And then we drove that Saturday night up to the Lake District, and the next day we drove into Scotland.
Nice.
And I was enchanted by Scotland. So I had only one desire in Scotland. Only one.
What, haggis?
Well, sort of.
Loch Ness, to meet your people? Loch Ness you're related to Loch Ness.
I'm related to everybody. No, I wanted a big, beautiful, see, this is why. Okay.
Is the monster apparent? No, Loch Ness, that's the name of the loch.
That's the
name
Loch
of the
Ness
Monster. There we go.
Monster.
I'm sorry.
No, but I really just wanted a big, beautiful, strapping Scottish.
You wanted to see some Scottish junk, is what you wanted the wind to blow.
No. I didn't want the wind to blow. Not yet.
You wanted some Scottish uncut.
I wanted the beautiful Scottish man in a kilt to come walking around the corner and basically ravage me. So you know what happened?
Did you hire someone?
I got a calendar.
Oh my God.
That was as close as I was going to get, but now I have one for every month for 2019.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you meet any strapping Scottish boys?
No, but I was really enchanted by the country.
Right.
It was actually, there was something that happened to me and probably is contributing to, going back to the question of how are you?
Right.
I got into a place of peace that I've never gotten to. Mm-hmm. And I have numerous countries I've traveled to, and I have 3 countries that have captured me: Greece, Israel, which are like origin countries for me.
Right.
But then Scotland did something to my spirit, and there was something about the air and the mountains and the mist and the highlands and the people. But I didn't see so many people, so the ones that I did see, it was just every encounter was significant, whether it was just a passing encounter or somebody in a store or, there was, we went to the most westerly point of the UK, which you have to take ferries a lot to go over places because they have this water that it would take like 3 hours to drive around, but you just put your car in a ferry. Mm-hmm. And people are just different. Mm-hmm. So...
Very kind, very, good to, happy to meet you type of
people. more in Scotland even than in England. Even though outside of London, London is different. London is it's a metropolis, and it's London to me is like New York, just with nicer accents.
I like New York accents. And
anyway, I do too. But
that's cool. So I've thought about going to Scotland. I'm
actually going back.
I actually, my ma did some 23andMe shit, so it turns out on that side. I thought it was mostly German. I'm mostly German, but I also have some English in me as well.
You're mostly German? How did I become such good friends with you?
No. I'm mostly Puerto Rican, but that's my dad's side.
Oh, right.
On my mom's side, it's German, English, and some in the African, like Northern Africa.
Okay.
So I have that's why I always say there's part black there, and then there's part black on my dad's side as well.
I'm sorry.
Only one part. But
I'm not even.
But there's I do have some English. Right, I do have some English in me. But I've always wanted to go. My only experience was just in that city. I think it would be a very different experience if I went to the
city?
countryside.
In London?
Yeah. I just went to London for, what, I think it was like 4 days or 3 days or something. It wasn't a lot of time. It wasn't enough time for sure.
So when I lived in London...
Oh, you did?
I lived in London.
Okay. What, 90s, thousands?
90s, okay. Late 90s, early 2000s. On and off. I was in and out. I worked for a British company. It's when I worked on cruise ships.
Okay.
I worked for a British company. We would have weekends off because I would be in London for training for the ships. And so we would have the weekends off. So I had a lot of friends.
What training do you need for a
cruise ship? Tons.
Really?
Sure, because we worked in the spa.
So, okay. So I thought you were like a server on the.
No. I was a spa manager. I was actually like graduated person. I kind of went down. Yeah, I managed the spa.
Very nice.
I worked on...
You've had like 58,000 jobs. You know,
I know. I know.
I swear to God, I'm going to get a call from you in 5 years ago. I'm going back to school and I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Just pick something.
I know. I'm trying. And I've had like 58,000 jobs and I have a bachelor's and 2 masters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Even then, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So...
Anyway, continue. So you would go to, what about London?
So so on the weekends I would go visit friends in the countryside.
Right.
So I was down in Cardiff and in Truro, like near Wales.
Mm-hmm.
I was in, the place where, I forget now the name of it, but it's the castle where they did Harry Potter. I had friends who lived near there. We went there.
Nice.
I liked it down south. I really, the truth is, I just liked it everywhere. And I was in London a lot.
Right.
But again, London, and I loved London, but London for me was very, it wasn't different.
Yeah.
It was different because it was London and there were things that were specific to London. But for me, London's kind of like New York. And I've been there so much that I'm comfortable with it. But I like it. Right. I like it.
So how is Greece what did you say? You said it was because I get that you'd spend time in Israel, but you lived in Greece. How is that? Do you have Grecian blood? Grecian blood? Is that
so I found that I didn't know, but I do. I have I'm like an eighth or something Greek. Like if you go really back, I have a cousin there. I got a job with a Greek cruise ship company in 1996 or 5. Somewhere around there. The memory goes a certain thing. Yeah. So
by the time you hit 70, 20 years ago.
I know. Will you please tell them that I am not 70?
No. Continue.
I'm not 70. I'm not even 69.
I'm not saying nothing. So you were.
So I got a job on a Greek cruise ship.
Yes, ma'am.
And I flew from New York, New Jersey. I had worked on a cruise ship already. So I'd already worked on cruise ships and I had spent time in Italy. So what happened was I got a job on a cruise ship. I was on a cruise ship for like 5 months, a British cruise ship. We sailed the Caribbean, went back, divorced my first husband.
Like you do.
Well, some of it. Now we're best friends. It's a great relationship.
Yeah.
And then I got a job at a spa in the north of Italy in a town called Chianciano, north of a city called Chiusi, about a 2.5-hour train ride from Rome. And I was there for, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 6 months. I'm not sure exactly how many. Went back, was at my parents in New Jersey, and had 2 job offers. One was at Canyon Ranch in Arizona, and one was on this Greek cruise ship. And I had a different cat at that time. That was Cassidy.
Okay.
That
you like all C's, apparently. Cookies, cream, Cassidy.
It just worked out that way, but yeah. Okay. Well, my niece is named Cookies and Cream.
Ah, I see. That makes sense.
I didn't name them.
No.
And Cookies is named after my aunt.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. But my niece said, let's name her Cookies after Grandma Cookie. And I said, well, her is a he, but that's okay.
Okay.
So
it doesn't emasculate him too much.
No, Cookies is mommy's little lover boy, and Creamushka is mommy's pretty girl.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yes, we're very cute. Anyway, so I got this job. So I had this choice, and I chose to go on this Greek cruise ship.
Right.
And I don't remember why, but I do remember that I had to go get a visa for Brazil. It was 1996, and I had to go get a vaccine for yellow fever because we were going to go to Brazil.
Nice.
And we didn't just go to Brazil, we went to the Amazon, to Manaus.
All right.
And we would be there. And I remember being there in the morning and teaching a fitness class and laying on the floor doing like abs or something. And the bugs were, I mean, you can describe to people who can't see, they were huge.
Right.
They were huge, like this big. And there was one crawling, and I just was like, okay, and class is done for today, because I just don't do rodents or crawly things. But we would do things like we would take trips and we would go sleep like in hammocks with monkeys, and it was fascinating. So I ended up working on this Greek cruise ship.
Right.
Had a Greek boyfriend. Was on the ship for 11 and a half months. Got an apartment in Greece.
Hairy men, yeah?
He wasn't.
Really?
Somehow, I don't really like hairy men.
Right.
Actually, but he happened to be...
Because it seems like Greece would be, from what I remember.
I think he was as close to a Scot as I could get, because he was red. He had like red curly hair.
What? But he's okay. Somebody did some fucking they're not supposed to.
I have no idea, but he was.
Okay.
His name was Spiros, and he had red curly hair.
Spiros, of course.
Spiros Aronis.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, could you speak pretty well at that point, Greek? Or?
I learned Greek.
Okay.
So here's what was really interesting. Within 6 months, I was speaking Greek fluently.
Okay.
And not only speaking, but I could read and write.
All right.
And then
that was like your fourth language at that point, or I mean, because
English, Hebrew, Spanish. Yeah, that was my fourth language. Italian, English, Hebrew, Spanish, Italian. That was my fifth language. I've kind of lost most of my Italian at this point, though I could pick it up. If I can, but when I pick it up, I kind of mess it up with Spanish.
Right.
But at that particular time, it was my fifth language, and I just learned it really fast. So much so that when I lived in Athens, one of the women I met I was going to some writing class, and she said, "I think you were Greek in another life." And I said, "Oh, honey, I'm Greek in this one." Because,
right.
So I do speak fluent Greek and Hebrew, and So anyway, so I lived in Greece. I lived in Athens for 2.5 years, and then for 2.5 years I lived on the island of Rhodes. And
Rhodes is near
Rhodes.
Greece.
Well, it's a 14-hour ferry ride.
Okay.
So
Jesus.
Rhodes is in Greece. So Greece encompasses thousands of islands. Thousands of islands.
Oh, I did not know that.
And so then there's the mainland of Athens.
Okay.
Which is the mainland and the capital. But then there's, and then there's Thessaloniki, which is a city. There were a lot of Jews. So the thing is that there was a huge Jewish population in Greece prior to World War II.
I see.
And 70% of the Jewish population was wiped out. Rhodes, the island that I lived in, also had a big Jewish population, and Greeks are very unorganized. So Rhodes is part of a group of islands. There's like lots of different groups of islands if you look on a map. Rhodes is part of a group of islands called the Dodekanisu, and Dodeka means 12, but there was only 11 islands in the group of 12. And
yeah, I don't think they're very good with their finances either. Apparently.
No, they're not. They're falling apart. They're falling apart.
But they make amazing fucking spanakopita and fucking yeah. Anyway.
Moussaka, baklava. Yeah.
Baklava.
So I actually currently work at a Greek restaurant.
Right.
In Palo Alto in the Bay Area.
So you're Greek. It's useful there.
Well, it's useful because the Greek managers speak Greek and I know what they're saying.
Right.
But
so when they're trying to, they can't undercut you.
But the funny thing is that we have more Israeli customers than we have Greeks. And that becomes really useful because I've been at this restaurant for 6 years. It's my part-time job now.
Okay.
So all the Israelis in the area, and it's a big Israeli population down on the peninsula, huge.
Really?
They all know that I work there. And I, previous to that, worked for the Jewish Community Center in Palo Alto. So I'm kind of in with the Jewish community, So now I went from being the religious Jewish girl who worked at the JCC to the non-religious girl who works at the Greek restaurant.
When you were heavily religious, you would cover up more. Like there's a very specific type of dress. Is there a head garb? Is there?
I wore scarves.
Okay.
I had a wig that I would wear when I went out to like nice places.
Why a wig?
Because you're supposed to cover your hair when you were married.
Oh, wow. So, but a wig is permissible.
A wig is permissible.
Okay.
And people think, oh, it looks so good. I got to tell you something. When you're wearing a wig, you know that you have something on your head.
Right.
You know it. And I have I have a lot of hair myself.
Okay.
So,
luscious locks, yes. So
they are luscious and they're long. But it was actually annoying. It's actually been really nice. Like that was one of the things that that was the last thing that I did when I stopped being religious was I took off my wig, and I like had, you know, it was almost like I was going out in the world naked. It was really weird. And I wasn't always religious as an adult, so I was kind of like in and out of it, you know.
How long did you spend during that? Because you got married to a man. Right. That was when you were married to the Orthodox.
Yes.
Jewish
Okay.
man.
So my second husband was Jewish. We were not religious. We moved from Israel to the Bay Area in 2004. I've actually been in the Bay Area for almost 15 years.
That's awesome.
The longest I've ever been anywhere as an adult.
So is time ticking?
Yeah, it's weird. No, I'm
because now you have to bring cookies and cream with you. You can't just.
Oh.
I mean,
They're
now they'd have to change schools. It's a big thing.
And they're very attached to their vet, and they get their pedicure treatment once a month.
Of course,
I mean,
of course.
So yeah, we'll see.
You're gonna get them bedazzled. You should get them bedazzled, little sweaters and shit.
That's a great idea.
You haven't thought of sweaters yet?
No,
come on, girl.
Because they're so cuddly and they have such soft fur.
I know.
They're still babies. They're only 8 months.
Oh, okay.
Even though they're full, they went from 2 pounds to cookies is 8.1, and I think cream is 9.3.
Oh,
they're very cute.
So you after you moved to the Bay Area in 2004. So how?
So I was married to my second husband, Alex. You knew Alex.
I did.
And then when we split up, I moved. I was living in the North Bay with him in San Rafael. I moved down to the peninsula, to the Palo Alto, Mountain View, Sunnyvale area where I am now.
Right.
And it's when I left Alex that I started becoming religious again, because I was just kind of going through this. One of the things is that when you're a religious Jew, men and women don't touch unless they're married or unless it's your brother or your father. And for a very short period in my life, I went through this time where I just didn't want to have anything to do with men.
Right.
And in looking back,
which is very strange, because you're very you like touch.
I like touch,
men.
and I like boys. Yeah.
Right,
well,
right,
not
right.
boys, but men. But
Right,
people of the male persuasion.
Yes.
Yeah, and I like touch. I'm a tactile person, but I was, and now in looking back, I maybe could have processed it differently. But the way I processed it was I went into ultra Orthodox world, which is easy for me to go to because I was raised in it.
Right.
So I just kind of went in it, and once you go into the ultra Orthodox world, if you're single, they want to marry you. So people started fixing me up.
Right.
And the
Was
thing
it? I'm interested in this too. How do I put this delicately?
Have you ever put anything delicate in your life? Have we ever had a conversation where there's been anything delicate?
Okay, here's the deal. You
Tell
like
me.
sex. So how in the Orthodox fucking world how hard was it to not, go for it?
Okay, so here's the deal.
Oh, good.
Here's the deal.
Are we going to take your Jew card away?
Oh, honey, I lost that Jew card a long time ago.
Good girl. All right, continue.
No. So, and I love the fact that I like sex.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, so here's what happened. I went into this, and then I started dating, and I dated this man, and I really wanted to have a baby, and I had already had numerous miscarriages. I had many miscarriages with my first 2 husbands. Now I'm 44 years old. How old was I? I was 43 when I married my third husband, and I wanted a baby, and the people were trying to fix me up and everything else. And I'm dating, and we're not even so much as am I allowed to curse on this?
Fuck yeah.
All right, so we're not so much as even fucking holding hands.
Okay.
All right, and we get married, and we have sex, and it was over before I knew it started, and 6 weeks into the marriage, I knew I had made a mistake, and I thought if I had kissed this man before we got married, I never would have married him. Right. And I stayed in that marriage for 2 years, and subsequently had several more miscarriages and did a ton more IVF. And then when we broke up, I actually ended up having an affair with somebody while I was still in the religious community, with somebody who had nothing to do with the community. I had this hidden relationship.
It wasn't an affair for you, is what you're saying. It was an affair for...
It was an affair for him. He was married.
Right.
Which isn't something I would repeat, but the upshot of that was it actually helped me get back to myself. Because I was having a lot of sex, even though it was secret.
Right. Which, I mean, let's be fucking real. I know it's not good on paper. I know it hurts
horrible
people.
on paper.
It hurts
It's
people.
horrible.
But cheating is fun.
Well, actually, okay. There was a part of it. So we worked together. I can't believe you're sitting here clapping your hands. We worked together. So there was a part. What was fun was hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Like we had these like little like signals for each other. But then it gets to a point where look at you, like you're so evil and sinister. Oh my God, you are so wicked.
I'm just
I wish people could see your face right now. No, but what happened was eventually I wanted more.
No, absolutely.
I wanted more.
And it's super fucking hurtful. It's not what you should do.
No, it's not. And it hurt me and it hurt. Well, I mean, it did actually hurt him.
Right.
He had the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
He had great sex and then he went home and had dinner and time with his kids.
Right.
And I don't actually harbor any ill feelings towards him. He really helped me. And there was a lot of love there, and that was really helpful to me. Right. And he helped me move on and retain my spirituality with and figure out how to incorporate the spirituality of Judaism into my life without having to follow all of the laws and still encompassing the rituals. And so I call myself a semi-observant Jew because I observe all the holidays, and it's really important to me, and my spiritual bend is towards Judaism. Sure. And I really like it. And culturally, I'm just a Jew from New York. Be able to.
But that's the thing about Judaism, just like Muslim. Like there's sure, it's a religion, but it's also a race. Where like, well, not Muslim so much, but like
it's
with
a
Judaism,
culture.
it's a culture. It's all wrapped up. Like anybody, in China has Buddhism and Hinduism and this and that and Christianity, whatever. It's not tied up into your. You know what I mean? Like you can't separate that shit.
Well, there's that Amazon Prime show that's big now, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Right.
And it's a representation. But there's a whole bunch of things that's wrong with that show, too. That show is supposed to take place in the 50s, and there's things that, like, societally are off for that time.
What do you mean?
Even the way her parents, like now in season 2, her parents seemed to have very easily accepted the fact that she was a comedian doing these comedy shows, cursing, talking lewdly, getting a divorce. Like there was a whole bunch of things that were happening that societally and the societal mores of the 50s, it wouldn't have been so easy.
Right.
It wouldn't have been so easy. And then
there are someone was telling me a story, or I was listening to a podcast or something recently. There are some families who are happier than shit to just disown somebody real quick. Just fucking write them off. Like
now you're talking
whether
religion?
It's religion, whether it's I don't know. Like
well, in Orthodox Judaism, if you leave the fold, and not even Orthodox so much, in Orthodox Judaism, it's called going off the derech. Derech means path or way. Okay. It's a Hebrew word, actually means way. Okay. I need the derech. I'm on the way. I'm coming. That's what that means. So they go off the derech. They go off the path. I would be considered somebody off the derech, for example. Right. But then you have the Hasidic, the closed sex, the sex that have nothing to do. They're so insular that they don't engage in the outside world.
Like the Amish.
When
I was in Williamsburg.
Exactly. It's exactly like that, where they
had that the hats, not even like the hats that have the like they big old Russian looking hats, like fucking fur. Yeah.
The way I describe ultra Orthodox Judaism is like Amish with buttons, mustaches, and electricity.
But do those guys in Williamsburg, do they go to the fucking liquor store that's owned by the Muslim guy, or do they? No, they only go to their own.
No.
Interesting.
And it's so insular that they have their own judicial system. Did I say that word? The justice system. And it's called a Beit Din. Beit is house and Din is justice or judgment. So you have your own house. They have their own Beit Din, and they have their own. Like, even when I got divorced from both my second and my third husband, I had to get, in addition to the legal divorce, I had to get a Jewish divorce. Otherwise, I wasn't considered divorced, and I would not be able to get married.
By their rules.
Yeah, but if I got married again, so say I didn't get a Jewish divorce from Alex and I had married Moshe, who was my third husband, and Moshe and I had been successful in having a child, that children would have been considered a bastard, because it would have been considered that I wasn't fully divorced.
Crazy.
And then the other thing about divorce in Orthodox Judaism is that the man has to divorce the woman. So a man can, and this is a big thing in the Orthodox community, especially in Israel, it's called the naguna, which means that the man can leave, not divorce the woman, and she's shit out of luck. She's fucked.
Wow.
Because she can't get married again, and she's not divorced. It's horrible.
So he can just start a new family somewhere else.
He can't either, but he can basically hold her hostage in that way. I don't agree with that.
No.
But yeah, so there's still a lot of the patriarchal system, and it's there's a lot that's matriarchal, and there's a lot of power that women have in the Jewish
culture,
world,
in the
culture. But the more Orthodox you get, the less that they have.
Okay.
And not even the more Orthodox, when you get even to Hasidic, and it depends on what sect of Hasidic. Like the Lubavitch sect is totally different. The Lubavitch sect, which is the one that I actually tend to go towards. There's two that I tend to like. One is Lubavitch and one is called Breslov. But when you tend to go into like the secular, very insular worlds, there's some Orthodox communities where they just speak Yiddish, not even Hebrew, Yiddish. And Yiddish was the peasant language in the ghettos in Europe before World War II. Who wants to speak that? And they think it's an amazing language.
Wow.
Okay. And you may have, if you haven't this time, next time you go to Brooklyn, you will find them. Right.
No, I mean, I was in, Williamsburg apparently. So here's what's cool about that too. I don't know if I said it, but I found out recently. I was in, when I stayed in Williamsburg, it was just a random, okay, I want to be near Manhattan, but the prices for the Airbnb in Manhattan are too expensive, so I'm going to stay at an Airbnb in Brooklyn. So I stayed in Williamsburg, and apparently I was staying at a place. My Airbnb at that time was right around, a couple of blocks radius of where my great-grandma's seamstress. She was a seamstress in Williamsburg in the 50s and 60s. And so she had...
Your great-grandma?
Yeah. Don't get mad. All of 40s, 50s, I remember. But anyway, they were all in there. It was right around the corner. My grandma and grandpa, they met in Brooklyn, and they the G train is right, whatever. They remember exactly where, and it was right around the corner from where I was staying in my Airbnb.
So what's interesting to me about Williamsburg, so I was born, we will clarify this now. I was born in the mid-60s.
Okay.
In Brooklyn.
Okay.
In the Flatbush area.
Okay.
Of New York.
That's more north, right?
I don't know directions.
Okay.
But it's not Williamsburg.
Right.
But it's Flatbush, Sheepshead Bay, we actually lived right across from Lincoln High School on Ocean Parkway in Sheepshead Bay area, but it's really near Flatbush.
Okay.
So a different kind of sect of Jews. Williamsburg was more Hasidic. Williamsburg was such at that time, because now I know it's different, where we were not religious enough to walk into Williamsburg. And now Williamsburg's up and coming with a lot of the, millennials, and we're past millennials.
But there were Puerto Ricans there. I mean, there was, so I see it's so insular,
right?
That you can, it's almost okay, I could walk into Salinas, you know what I mean? But if I look Mexican and I'm wearing the wrong color, that's a problem. But if I don't look Mexican, it's
But now, so then Williamsburg was the Orthodox, the Hasidic Jews, and then maybe Puerto Ricans and blacks.
Right.
Now it's up and coming with the lofts, and it's the place to be. And the religious Jews are still there in their insular community, but it's a little bit, they're kind of pushed to the side more.
Right.
Before it was different. My parents live in a place called Lakewood, New Jersey. And I mean, I don't have to be appropriate on this podcast, right? No. So I say there are two types of black in Lakewood, New Jersey. Either your skin is black or you wear a black hat and a black coat, and that's, and that's Lakewood, New Jersey.
Right.
And now it's, it's gotten more built up and more expensive, so that the younger kids are moving to outlining areas, and, having more and more children. I don't
Actually,
know
when I was in Williamsburg, I was feeling good. I was like, oh man, people are different and people are kind of more legit. Like I talked about this. Like it feels like there's legit ass black people, legit ass Jews, legit like there's like more real ass motherfuckers, and it's all mixed in. It's not like in the Bay Area where like we wave the flag of look how mixed in we are, but you can easily, like culture wise, even though you may be Indian or you may be white or you may be black, everyone has the same iTunes headphones in. Everyone is wearing the same Netflix shows. Everyone's watching fucking Bird Box. Like it's the same culture wise. Exactly. Everybody's wearing the same thing and watching the same thing and believing the same thing and eating the same Grubhub shit. It's the culture's the same, even though you're race and shit. So in New York, it was like actually different cultures mixed. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And but one of the things I'm kind of a coffee snob, and I was like, leaving my Airbnb in the morning, and I went to a coffee place, and I just wanted to like legit roast fucking good coffee. So I was having coffee, and I felt this weird feeling, and I'm like, I feel like people are kind of like, feel like uncool, and I realized, oh, this is hipsters. The hipsters have this little piece of Brooklyn, right? And I'm like, oh, I haven't felt this since I was in Bay Area.
It's true.
It's like a little piece of the Bay that went to Brooklyn.
My experience with the East Coast, I remember going back years ago. This was when I think I was after the third marriage, before I took off the wig, let's say. Before, so I was still like dabbling with I was still living on the edge or inside the religious world. Actually, I was just living on the edge because I was like dressed the part, but I was acting. I was already going out, which wasn't that big of a deal, to be honest with you.
Okay.
On some levels, I was an adult. I was in my 40s.
Internally, it wasn't a big deal.
Internally, it was. Internally, it was a process. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it was difficult because when I went back, I thought, that's it. This is it. I'm going to do, part of it too was I'm finally going to do it right.
Right.
I'm going to go back.
Be a good girl.
I'm going to be a good girl.
Right.
And I'm just not.
You are, but you're not. You're a different version.
Right.
Anyway, continue.
So I was like, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to marry the religious man, and I'm going to have the children, and it's finally going to happen, even though I'm like 43 years old, and then it did. And this was like about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so as I was coming out of it, but I remember because my youngest nieces are 9 and 10 and a half now, and Ariella was a baby. So maybe we're going back 8 years. What year is it? We're in 2018. Yeah. So maybe it was like 2010. It was that winter. Mm-hmm. And we went to some Discovery Museum on 83rd and Broadway. And I was there with the girls, and they were like, I was holding Ariella. So she was definitely, it was like, right, she was just about a year, and Chaya was, whatever, Chaya's 18 months older than her, so Chaya was about 3. And we were like playing, and I remember talking to some woman, and she was telling me about, not religious, but clearly Jewish. Everyone there was Jewish. Mm-hmm. Telling me, like, she was like, what synagogue she goes to. In the East Coast, people are identified with a certain sect of their Judaism, whether it's conservative or Reform or Orthodox. They're more in touch with it, even if it's just cultural. Whereas here, they're not. You have the Israelis who are in touch with it from a different level, because it's very different. Being a secular Israeli is very different than being a secular Jew in the States. Being a secular Jew in California is very different than being a secular Jew on the East Coast. On the East Coast. Okay. Because on the East Coast, even if you're secular, you're still like attached, you're still connected. And I remember going at a certain point when I said no more religious school, and I went to public school, I went to public high school, we were closed on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in the area we lived in because there were so many Jews.
Right.
The schools were closed. It was a holiday. And I remember at one point saying, when I grow up, I'm going to come back as a non-Jew working for a Jewish organization so I can get all those holidays off. Right. But there's more of an affiliation. That's the word I'm looking for. And actually, I do have to go pee now.
Of fucking course.
Oh, come on. I lasted
48 fucking minutes.
That's
Less
amazing.
than 48 minutes.
That's amazing.
What do you mean that's amazing?
That's amazing.
For the love of God.
We're going to
get a bucket. All right, we'll be right back.
I don't want a bucket. So maybe something's changing because I lost weight and I'm not having as many hot flashes.
Yay!
I know, right?
I don't have any more hot flashes either.
Well, yeah. The hot flashes were great when I was in England and Scotland because it was cold.
How often does it happen? Or did it happen?
It had...
Here,
not getting...
No, you could just pull the mic closer.
You just like this mic close
just
to my mouth.
it.
Like this?
You follow a direction. There you go.
Oh, you just continue. I'm so glad somebody laughs at your jokes. So here's the thing about hot flashes.
Okay,
right.
I'm ready.
Okay, so unlike a menstrual cycle, which you have like a few days of like being bitchy and wanting chocolate, and then you have like a few days of being bloated and miserable and bleeding, and you just don't want to talk to anyone when your face breaks out, and then afterwards you're great, and then it happens again, and you can kind of track it and cycle it. And you're prepared, and hopefully you have a mother or a sister or a friend or somebody who explains to you what's going to happen prior to the onset of that happening, like my mother did, very badly. And and like I come from an immigrant family, my grandmother like slapped us across the face and then kissed us when we got our periods. I mean, it was a very
Wait, what was that process like? What do you mean? Like as like a ritual thing?
Yeah, yeah,
weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
I like that.
Other cultures have that shit too. Yeah, and but you know what you're getting into.
Sure.
Here you don't know. First of all, my mother had a hysterectomy when she was 51. My grandparents never talked about anything. I come from this. You don't talk about this. You don't talk about this stuff.
Right.
So around 49, I started getting like one hot flash in the middle of the night, somewhere between like, depending on the time zone, literally it would be anywhere from like 4 to 6 in the morning.
Whoa.
I would wake up hot and it was okay.
Okay.
And last year they just started, and here's exactly what it's like. All of a sudden you start to get anxious and you feel like a bomb is slowly rising up and exploding in your body as your entire body breaks out from a sweat from the inside out, and you are just hotter than you ever can imagine. You're totally sweating. Your heart starts racing. Sometimes I'm at the restaurant. I'm like, I've got to go outside. I'm having a hot flash. And I literally throw my body against whatever cold piece of stone I can find. Or I'm like waving something to fan me, and I'm really hot. And then it just, you think it's never going to end. And about 3 to 4 minutes later, it stops. And then you get freezing because you're just broken out in cold sweat all over your body. And that can happen numerous times a day. And it can happen.
I wonder how less dramatic people react to it. But non-Jews from non-New Jersey.
I want to tell you, but it is, but whether you react to it or not, any woman I have talked to, it's been the same.
Right.
I mean, like, I will have people sitting at my table just fanning. I'll be like, oh God, yeah, I know that one. Yeah, and it puts you in a whole different realm of life. Like,
so what's the time frame? When does this stop?
It can go for 10 years.
Fuck,
there is no time. Everybody's different. And if you don't know your family history, and even knowing your family history. So I was able to tell one of my sisters are all younger than me, but they're not as healthy as me.
Okay.
For real.
Right.
Now, like, for real. They don't, they don't like do the kind of self-care I do and follow the same kind of food plan I follow. And they have other issues health-wise, which thank God I don't. So, but I'm able to give them some sort of idea, but we have absolutely no idea. We have no family history.
Right.
And it's unbearable. So now it seems to have like calmed down. And now I don't get them quite as much. And then, again, I did have a few when I was in England and Scotland, but then they were great because it was so cold.
Right.
But it's a different kind of hot. It really feels like a bomb is exploding in your body.
And you said 5 minutes?
3 to 5 minutes.
Jeez.
Typical.
Okay.
And then I never did any sort of hormones, even though they were so bad my doctor gave them to me and I put them in my drawer. Do you know what the hormones are that they give you? They're the fucking birth control pill. I remember I went to pick it up and it was estradiol, and I was like, I know this drug.
Right.
And I'm like, what is this? And she's like, it's the birth control pill. And I just burst out laughing at the pharmacy. I'm like, you're kidding me. I'm getting the birth control pill.
So what was the reason why? I mean, do you intentionally? Why don't you intentionally use it?
I had a bad experience with hormones when I did IVF.
Okay.
It's so
similar hormone to that pill.
Well, yeah, they give you estrogen.
Okay.
And progesterone. So that's what the birth control pill is. It's estrogen and progesterone. But actually, it's mostly estrogen. I take natural supplements. Sure. I actually do that. But besides the fact that you can gain weight, and not that I'm overweight, but I really don't want to.
You don't want the help.
I don't, right? Exactly.
Right.
I mean, because menopause slows down your metabolism anyway.
Sure.
And I think just because I follow such a specific food plan and I'm very aware, my body stays pretty much the same. I'm wearing the same clothes I wore. My coat's from 1992. So I'm pretty much wearing the same clothes I've been wearing for like 30 years.
Right.
But hormones made me crazy. And that I don't need any extra help with.
No, you don't.
Like seriously crazy. Like I've
had a number of women tell me that like even the not IVF, God damn it, what's the name of it? The birth control thing you put up right into
the IUD.
IUD, there we go. That even that can affect it.
Sure, because it's a sludge.
You're literally stopping a natural
of estrogen.
Yeah, you're stopping a natural. Your headphones are connected.
I want to get something. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Sorry.
But you're literally stopping a natural. You're stopping nature, is what you're doing.
Is that? Wait, sorry. I need lip balm. Hold on a moment. My addiction.
Of course. So of course it's like that. Your body is like, hey, what the fuck are you doing to me? It makes it come out in different ways.
No, it's just, yeah. It makes any sort of extra hormone makes you crazy.
Right.
And I was like crazy. Like when I did IVF, at one point I was so nuts, and I had so many hormones inside of me, and I was doing IVF and I was getting pregnant and I was miscarrying, or I was having failed IVF. And it was like I was pregnant times 100. I gained weight, which was really uncomfortable, even though I was barely eating. And I remember sitting on the floor of my apartment, and I was like kicking the cabinet, and all of a sudden my foot went through the cabinet. And I was like, oh my fucking God, what did I just do? And there was this like big hole. And I went to the property managers. I said, I don't know how it happened. I just dropped this cantaloupe, I swear to God. And they replaced it. Yeah. And my husband at the time, such a lovely human being, was just angry at me. And I was like, I'm dying inside and you're angry at me, but like there's a reason why we're divorced.
Right.
So
that's a heavy thing. How many exact miscarriages did you have?
15.
15.
I had 15. Well, some of them I didn't know. So like my first husband, I was healthy and, following my food plan and living that lifestyle, but I was very, very thin.
Mm-hmm. And late 20s?
Mid to late 20s, actually.
Okay.
Mid to late 20s, because we divorced. We split up when I was 31, and we were divorced by the time I was 32. So it was more mid 20s to late 20s, more like 25 to 30. 25, 29. Mm-hmm. Very thin. And so there was a couple times I got pregnant I didn't even know.
Okay.
And then there was a couple other times I got pregnant and I miscarried. Like, it was all very early.
All in that same marriage?
In the same marriage.
Were you trying at that point, or you weren't?
No,
okay.
We weren't trying at all.
Okay.
We hardly even had sex.
Ah.
So it's like one of those. But
right.
And then my second husband, we were living in Israel, and his best friend was a gynecologist. And so I was seeing him, and I had some issues. And I don't even remember exactly what they were, to be honest. I just remember...
let's pause it real quick, because this is a very interesting topic. But how his best friends... I can't look at my man, like my homie's girl's pussy. Like, I can't do that. That's a fucking... A male gynecologist has got to be, like, really mentally detached to look at your best friend's girl's vagina. That's intense. All right. Sorry, continue. Was he your gyno, though?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. That's just disturbing to me.
We just didn't have an issue with it. It's just Israel.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably what it was.
I mean, he had a girlfriend outside of his marriage, and he used to use. We had a dental clinic that was in an apartment, so he used to like go to the dental clinic. It was 17,000 degrees of inappropriate, but he was one of the best gynecologists in the country, and he was world renowned, so I was going to go to him.
Of course. Right.
And I mean, I'm trying to remember. I definitely saw him, but there was also associates there too.
Sure.
So I could have been like, he could have been the primary person who did like all the examinations, and then, God, this sounds so horrible.
What?
The way I said examinations. But I remember I had some procedure, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember my mother was visiting at the time and came with me. And I had several miscarriages also in Israel. Again, we weren't exactly trying. Then when I married my third husband, we were trying. I did do IVF. The cruel joke for me about that was that I paid the last of the IVF off in 2012 when the last treatment was in 2009. You know, and that was, I mean, I talk about it now. And I mean, so many other things have happened since then, but it was, I remember just hating everybody who was a mother after that for a really long time.
When did that stop? If it has.
Hating the mothers? Oh, it stopped. I don't remember when, but it stopped. I just remember like hating everyone as a mother. And then I sometimes have people who come into my life. Like I have this one girl who's in my life, similar friends to what we share. And she was kind of deadbeat momish. And I said, you don't deserve your kids. And she got really pissed and didn't talk to me for months. And then she came back and she said, you were right. Wow. You know, but I do have issues with deadbeat parents, but especially, you know, with like some people have issues with deadbeat dads. I have more issues with deadbeat mothers, or with people who, you know, have children to use them as weapons and then use. I'm not anti-abortion, but I'm anti-abortion as a form of birth control.
Okay.
You know, and I'm not anti-abortion or anti-choice or I mean, I'm all about women and women's rights and women's empowerment, and I'm all down with that, but not as a form of birth control. It just hurts my heart. And, you know, so I had, with my last husband, we actually, I was total treatment, you know, and a couple were failed IVF, like they just totally failed. And a couple where I got pregnant and then I lost it. And then, probably, I would say recently, like the last like 2-3 years, I really came to terms and got to like a really good place of peace with it. Right. You know, and people say all sorts of things like, well, why didn't you adopt? Because I didn't, you know, because I was single, because I was working 2 jobs, because I'm living in the Bay Area, because it was just so hard to pick myself up off the floor.
And imagine if you had adopted with the person that you eventually realized you're fucking 6 weeks into a marriage and you realize this is not the right person. Imagine if you had brought a fucking kid into that.
Well,
that's not healthy.
You know, the end of the marriage, my rabbi said to me, just get pregnant and kick him out. But, you know, I
met your rabbi. Is that same lady?
No. That's my good friend. That's the one who she facilitated at Alex's funeral. But no. We're talking a rabbi with a long beard.
Right.
So, yeah, no, but it was at that time in my life. So remember, I come from this world where what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to grow up, get married in your 20s, have 6 to 8 children for real. Wow. And then when you're in your 40s, you're supposed to start marrying your children off. And then there's like Judaism and Shabbat and the holidays. There's all this progression, kind of like the American dream of the white fence. Right. And when you don't follow that road, you end up living an alternative lifestyle. Even if it's not, even though if somebody from,
even though it would be pretty strict for lots of people, you know, it's still maybe not strict enough for some.
Well, what I'm saying is that because my life didn't look like that progression, right? The life that I live today is an alternative lifestyle for the world I come from. Right. You know, with, you know, living alone, having roommates, working 2 jobs, being very in the world. Right. Being very open on my friend Pete's podcast about how much I like to have sex. Right.
We'll get to it.
You know, no, we already got to it. Yeah, but like everything about the life I live is alternative, and I think that just having those miscarriages and then leaving that marriage, which was in 2010, so it's been over 8 years now, and not sure if I want to be married again. Like how you're like, you've become sure that you really want to have children.
Right.
I've become sure that like I would really like a partner, and I would really like that partner to be just one person. But I don't know if I have to like actually, I'm 54 years old. I don't know if I have to actually marry them.
Right.
Or like, yeah, I don't, it doesn't have to look a certain way. Like I've gotten much more comfortable with things just being what they are. And letting them evolve. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think for females anyway, there's, especially in the 30s, like there's much more, like marriage is built on this idea, sometimes it's subconscious, sometimes it's conscious, of security. It's like, okay, I have a foundation, I have a net, I have a safety, this guy says he's going to stay, and he's going to stay. He can't just leave. I have the security, not even financially, but just fucking security. There's security built up in it. And you have security.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have your degrees. You have your connections. You have your life. You know what I mean? So maybe there's less need to have it on fucking paper if somebody loves you and you love them. You know what I mean?
Now. But even 10 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Right.
You know, and it's not so much about the degrees or about, I always, everybody innately has the ability to take care of themselves. They may need somebody to help them, you know, get to that place. You know,
Right.
you may, you know, everybody has the key, but wait.
Continue.
Wait, let me.
See how nice I am that I'm allowing you.
Oh my God.
God, I'm fucking good.
Sit on your hands. But, you know, now I forgot what I was going to say, but no. Yeah. No, but it's thinking that you need that. And,
Right.
and it's also society. Like when I got married for the third time, I think my parents were so happy that like I was going to be okay. And
that you were marrying the right person?
right. Yeah. It was like
The
all going to be like this
Orthodox
Jewish
person?
show. Yeah.
Right.
And the truth is that he was, of all of them, he was worst. He was the worst one. He was the worst husband, you know, in a variety of ways, you know, and, you know, and passive aggressive and mean and, you know, emotionally very abusive. I mean, he would go sometimes 2 weeks without talking to me. I mean, come on, I can't go 2 minutes without talking,
No.
you know? But just that there's that, like, the lie we tell ourselves is that, like, if I don't have somebody, I'm not okay or I'm not complete. And it was
Right.
one of the lies I told myself, which really felt true, which was that if I don't have children, I will have a life that will never have meaning. You know? And it was when I got to the point where I had the last miscarriage, I was alone. I wasn't making a lot of money at that point. I was really confused about whether I wanted to stay in the Bay Area, whether I wanted to go back to the East Coast. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was kind of lost with myself at like 40. It was 2010, so 46 years old. I was kind of lost with myself, and really like had in my core of my life will never have meaning, and forgetting all the places my life had meaning.
Right.
And then it was around that time, shortly after, I think it was a couple of years after that, in 2012, when I met you and became involved with some of the people that we're involved with, and was reminded that there are quite a lot I can do that's going to give my life meaning,
Right.
in a way that's going to be powerful and have lasting effects, and that I'm going to have some sort of inner peace and calm. And fast forward to today, where I'm just in a really good place, where I just feel like, you know, I mean, all joking aside, I have these little kittens. Well, they're 8 months old, but they give me something to look forward to come home to. Right. I have a tremendous amount of people in my life all over the world. And I have a great relationship with my family, and my parents are still alive.
And you have the experience and the ability to help anybody. You can plug into fucking anybody and immediately touch lives. You know what I mean? But here's the thing. Oh, dumb. but I was thinking about, so first things first, did suicide ever become an idea?
Absolutely.
Especially during that time? During the miscarriages? Was there
No,
ever a
during the
point where you were
miscarriages
like,
it wasn't. It was more, suicide was more of an idea when I
Before
was
you
in
got
my
sober?
before I got sober,
Right.
in my early crazy years of, you know,
Right.
sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the early 80s in New York.
right?
But I was the kind of suicidal person where I wanted to kill myself, so I would be with people who could kill me because I was too afraid.
Yeah.
You know. So
dangerous motherfuckers.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love dangerous motherfuckers. I
Welcome
still do.
To the podcast. Because I was thinking about this the other day. I took a nice walk on the beach, and you know, in our spiritual practices, like I have a lot of connections and a lot of people in my life, but I got a little cray. I got a little fucking existential, which I don't know if should be in the business of of being involved in thinking about those things. I wish people could
see the way I'm looking at you right now.
So I was like, this is really beautiful. And then I had this weird thought, because I'm still trying to parse out, like, okay, yeah, I genuinely believe I'm good at what I do. I know I'm a talent. I have my talents, and I'm fucking good at it. And there is a reason why I think God has left the character defects of ego in me, because it can be used for good. It can, you know what I mean? Why else would I make a fucking podcast, right? Now, here's the thing.
Tell me.
As beautiful as that beach was, and I'm talking to a guy, I'm like, this is fucking great, but like, there's a piece of me that does not want to be here right now, because if people aren't applauding, I can't feel it in some ways. You know what I mean? Mm. And even when they are, that's a whole nother fucking. I'm not. Would I be present? Appreciate the love I'm getting? No. You guys don't know me. I have all these other. I'm a bad person. I'm not good. I'm not right. But like, even as beautiful, I had that thought where I'm like, that's why it feels strange to me. That's why I can't really plug into it. That's why that it's the fucking ego that we're like, if my ego doesn't know that it exists, do I exist? You know what I mean? Where there's this weird. And I was thinking about it last night, and I was like, well, the reality is that in real time, in real life, I can go into a room all over the fucking country, all over the world, and plug in immediately to people who know where I've been, and I can help.
Yes. And
that's why I'm here, to help, to connect to each other. But like, that's the thing. The other part of that is completely fucking voluntary. That is completely voluntary. If I disappeared, I'm not going to get all like suicide, whatever, but I'm saying if I disappeared, it would be a couple of rough months and maybe it'd be really hurtful to a lot of people. But a lot of other people would just turn around and try to help somebody else, right? So I can volunteer to be a part of this life, or I can volunteer to exit it, right? And I don't know, it was weird and kind of heavy that I'm like, my ego is that fucking strong that it's like, if I'm not getting my applause, if I'm not getting what I think I need, if I'm not getting what I think I deserve, it's almost like I don't exist. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to like put these pieces together and come up with the fact that this is why I've been so desperate for approval. This is why I've been so desperate for because one of the lies, you told yourself the lie of, okay, if I don't have a baby, my life doesn't have meaning. One of the lies I tell myself is if I'm not getting applause, or if I'm not getting attention, if I'm not getting fucked the amount of times I need to get fucked, or I think I need to get fucked,
you never
then
will.
I'm not. Right?
Because if I'm not getting fucked, if I'm not, I'm telling you right now, your net's not happening.
But that's what I'm saying, is that even when I've had like a fucking bevy of female, it's not enough for me.
Right.
I'm always spinning plates for the next girl who's going to text me back, or the next. I'm always worried about if there's 58 people applauding in a fucking room for me for a song but that person is not. That person's on their phone. You know, my ego is never satisfied. Never satisfied. And so one of the lies I tell myself is like, if I get what I want, or if I get my fucking, then if I'm not getting fucked a certain amount, then I'm not a man. If I'm not getting a certain amount of people liking or sharing this, or liking my post or any of that, then I'm not successful. Then I'm not a good XYZ. I'm not a good musician. I'm not a good podcaster. And so where does my fucking meaning come from? And we were part of a group. I was a part of a group that gave me the built-in meaning already. I check these boxes. I'm a good boy. I check these boxes, I'm a good boy. And I would check the fuck out of those fucking boxes.
But it was never
and then
good enough.
Never good enough. And I would fight, and I would fight to the... if I get to the top, there was always something to... I'm going to fight to the top of this heap, and then I'm going to be a good enough boy, and God or the universe or whatever will give me the approval and the acceptance and the meaning. And I didn't fucking get that. And so now that I'm out of there, now I'm like, where's my meaning come from? Right? Where's that reality? Where's that connection? And I know where it is. And I'm still very much a part of where we go. But right. I'm still, there's like a weird, that ego is not getting scratched. And so I'm having to change my fucking ideas. And it's heavy. It's heavy.
So.
Yes.
The meaning comes for me in the helping of other people.
Right.
And then the other deeper meaning for me that has happened, and it's only just slowly started to happening. It's more than a deep sense of being comfortable in my own skin. I haven't worked at my day job. I have a corporate day job. Since Friday the 22nd. I go back on January 2nd. And then I picked up some shifts at the restaurant. So from Friday the 22nd until Friday, I worked, I think, 4 or 5 shifts at the restaurant. And now I'm off for 4 days. And there was Thursday, because we were going to do Thursday. I had other things. Thursday, I was home all day with cookies and cream. Kukushka and Kremushka.
Of course.
And I had some projects. I had some cleaning. I had some decluttering. I wanted to get stuff done. I think I didn't talk to anybody. Maybe I had one phone conversation with my mother, because I speak to my mother every day pretty much.
Which is rare, because you're always getting called.
Yeah, it was rare. I had a lot of texts, but I just didn't get a lot of phone calls, or I didn't make a lot of phone calls. And then I was talking to a boy for a while, so
right.
I was like distracted. And then I was like sitting
take them titty pics the right way, right?
Oh God, no pussy pics, but I just I'm over the pics, I'm over the dick pics. Let's not even go there. You've seen one, you see them all. I don't want to see them. I know what it looks like. Thank you very much.
Well, what have you seen it already? Yeah.
So, but anyway,
sometimes it's a verification process. I mean, it's just like, okay, it's not tiny. It's not, hooked, it's not looped. Anyway, continue.
That would be horrible. But yeah, no, I mean, we can go back to that. But
yeah,
it's I was so okay with just being alone with myself. Right. It was so nice, and right. I'm watching Outlanders now because of the whole Scottish thing. So I'm binge watching Outlander. It's whatever, on demand on stores or something. And that's where I realized I'm good. I'm good. I mean, there's always more. There's always more to grow. There's always more people to help.
Right.
I think the day that I won't be here, I have a lot of people in those groups that we're both, mutually involved with, but also my nieces and my nephews are very important to me, and I pay them a lot of money to call me Aunt Robi the Fabulous. Right. And, but when I was in Scotland, I got 4 of my nieces little Harris Tweed purses. And my thought was, one day I'll be gone. It's just such a Jewish thought. But one day I'll be gone. I just realized it when I was saying. And then we're
going to have a violin play in the background.
Yes, we should have. And they'll have these little purses that they'll keep forever because they're Harris Tweed and they're very special. They're very dear. And they'll just remember Aunt Robi went to Scotland and bought them the purses. And, and it felt really good to be able to do that, because there was a time in my life that I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Right.
And there was,
Isn't there a strange thought?
Go ahead.
I know this is fucked up, but maybe they'll come out with the technology where everyone lives forever, but they'll be dead in 80 years, 90 years, right? So where does this legacy, where does this fucking... maybe that's where my ego is so strong that if I don't blow up a half of the world, that I'm not satisfied. Oh my god! But there's even then I'm okay, I don't know why it's only been this. Is this normal for 32? Is this normal for 32 where I'm I'm
You're
simultaneously
only 32?
Yeah. Where I'm thinking, like, if I had, maybe that's why this thing in my...
that's right. You're going to be 33 in June.
Yeah.
That's right.
6
right.
months.
Yeah.
So that's why there's this weird piece of me that's like, maybe that's why is this normal to get existential at this fucking piece of my life? Where I'm like, now I'm starting to think of kids, and now I'm like, if I don't, it's corny as shitty, and it's, again, still voluntary, but like, if I almost feel like, okay, if I don't make something happen, if I don't leave a legacy of some kind, whether it be the fucking kids, or whether it be nieces, or whether it be fucking, making music and podcasts and comedy that lasts and touches people's lives and enriches people's lives, then what the fuck am I doing, right?
But that does make sense. And it does make sense that it happens at different, like, we go through, like, life cycles, right?
Right.
So, like, what I was saying that, like, I grew up in a world where the life cycle, you came with the built-in life cycle. Mm-hmm. I didn't follow that built-in life cycle. But it's natural. These are natural desires.
Right.
And once we start to overcome some of our own, getting in our own way and some of our own shit with some of the stuff that we did, then we can get back in touch with our natural desires, and they don't have to be out of joint. They could be, natural desires that we naturally progress towards.
Right.
And the thing that I've learned, because I really wanted these things to happen, that if they don't happen, if I don't get that thing that I think that I need so badly, that if I don't have it, I will die. My life will have no meaning, and I will just be a shell of a person. That's what I learned, that I can have the natural desires, not get it the way I think I need to get it, and still get it in some other way. Because one of the things I was doing this workshop, I did this workshop presentation in England, and I shared, if I had a child with this man, I would have a 10-year-old, and I would be able to get up and go and travel and impact the people that I do impact in the way that I do, that I can do now, because I don't have that. Mm-hmm. I have more 20-something-year-olds, as you know, 20-something-year-old young girls in my life who I'm able to help in a really big way because I'm not their mother.
Right.
In a way that they would need a mother-like person to help them. Mm-hmm. And I finally got comfortable with that's who I am.
Right.
And if I had stayed stuck in my life has no meaning, and I'm not going to go back out there, and I'm not going to help anybody, and I'm just going to stay in this, like, shell of my own self-pity,
right?
Because that's what it became.
Yep.
Yeah, and yes, it's a horrible thing to have numerous miscarriages, and it's a sad story. And when people ask me, I say it's a sad story,
right?
Because it was sad, and
Absolutely.
It was heartbreaking, and it's not what normally happens to people. And I still think I would have been an amazing mother. But, I get to do that in other ways. And my mind got to be open and expanded. And I still have, like, I'm not done. In some ways, I'm just starting. Like, there's things that I'm just starting to do. Like you said, you think I'm going to go back to school. There's some things I'm actually looking into because, like, I'm like, but like this,
Right.
And I think that it's part of those natural desires is, what am I going to leave? Am I going to leave more than, like, my nieces with a Harris tweed purse?
Right.
One of my nephews wrote for one of his college entrance things about one of the people who has impacted his life, and he wrote about me. And we want that. And I think there's that balance, with the ego, because an ego is like, we need an ego and an identity. We need that in order to function as healthy, balance isn't the right word, but like as healthy, functional human beings, a healthy, effective. That's the word I'm looking for. We need that.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to try and do the things that you do because I can't. Those aren't my gifts. Mm-hmm. But if I don't do everything I can to take the gifts that I've been given and then be the best that I can be, then I'm just saying fuck you to the universe and fuck you to, God, for lack of a better word, because I have these things. And so the desires to then make myself into something better with those gifts I have is natural and a good thing.
I think that's a part of what addiction is. That's a part of what alcoholism is. Is this idea, because that's
right.
Is this idea? Well, then I'm not going to play the game anyway.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Exactly.
It's like, I'm going to take my kickball and I'm going to go home.
Right.
Fuck it. I'm not going to plug into life.
And I'm not going to leave my house again. And I'm
Right.
not going to come out and I'm not going to talk to anybody. And I'm not going to participate.
Right.
And I am not going to help anybody else.
Right. I'm not going to be in the present moment. I'm not going to touch people.
Exactly.
No. I don't even want to play because I got a bad hand here, or because this, and that's part of what I'm up against. Not up against. It's fucking ego. It's ego.
Right.
That's what my fucking main problem is. Because even with this, okay, take my gifts. Okay, my gifts are I can do music, and I'm good at this, and I'm good at performing, and I can talk, and I'm fucking blah, 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 blah. So here's what I'm going to do with my gifts, right? But what that part of like, okay, but then people don't listen, or only 3 people come to the show, or this is happening, that, blah, 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 right, and all this, and I'm like, well, then I'm just gonna take my fucking kickball and go home. That's my first, you know what I mean, or I'm gonna punish. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so
actually, I see that with you. I know you, Pete.
it's also one of my gifts. But
I'll let you have that solution for now.
I could bring up the slides. All right, now.
Sick fuck.
Fucking Yelp reviews. But that's really what that is that so that's why I say it's voluntary. That's why I'm saying, because it's like, okay, but I don't have to. I don't have to play. I don't have to give something to this world. You know what I mean? And before I got sober, that was just my normal thing, was just like, fuck it. I'm not even going to be a part because the system's broken and And now it's like, okay, obviously I'm a part of this thing, but like, now I've come to, here's part of what it is. Before I left that old group, that was my identity, right?
The old group.
The old group was my identity.
And not only was the old group your identity, because I was there with you, and I left before you.
Right.
But the old group is your identity, but your role in the old group, you were stuck.
Oh, yeah.
You were stuck. Even so much so that you and I clashed when I left.
Right.
You know,
not that much. I mean,
just a little bit.
A little bit.
Enough that it made it fun. You can never get rid of me. No, but you know what I mean. But
right.
like you're already seeing the truth, because it just like anything, you know, when you see that something is wrong and faulty and you don't say something about it, after a while, something happens inside of you.
Right. And I had known that even before, because before the group really got
bad,
metastasized, if you will, like before it got
metastasized. That's a really good word. Kind of like a slow cancer.
Exactly. Before it got as insular and elite and crazy as it did, I lived in Portland between 2008 and 2010.
Right.
I was
and
a part.
I
was disparate.
met you after
right?
that.
Right. I knew that I could go, that this wasn't my identity, that I had this other groups and I was this and I was that and I was, you know, whatever. And I lived somewhere else and my identity was not built upon this. So I was always had not one foot out, but kind of like where I was like, yeah, but, you know, and I've had a couple of people, Allie, and a couple of our other friends, you know, where she was like, yeah, we were grateful that we got you in the group versus
it's true,
you know what I mean?
You were the only one in that group. I remember, because you and I became close pretty quickly. Right. You were in the city, we were down in Redwood City. You were like the only one. You were doing other stuff.
Right.
You were out there doing other stuff. But who you were, from what my experience, you were so tethered.
Right.
You were so tethered
right.
that you couldn't, you know, you would stand up for yourself and then you would feel ashamed, or that there was something wrong with you for having your voice and standing up for yourself. And so you bring it back to the whole ego thing. Now you have nobody telling you you're a piece of shit. So
except
now,
for myself.
Right. You always did.
Right.
You know, but then you have people like me and John and Ben, people who are helping you dispel that voice.
Right.
You know, that's something that we've talked about. And I also have, you know, my people, because it becomes, what are the lies I'm telling myself?
Right.
You know, I really believe that. So I don't know where we were going with this,
but all I'm saying is that if that was my identity, now over the last year and a half after leaving, now I'm like, okay, I'm reaching this point and I'm getting, you know, I've lost all this weight. I've started this podcast.
You lost a person.
Yeah, I did. And not just weight wise, in reality, and so it's like, okay, well, now what? You know what I mean? And now, okay, what if I could actually get what I want? Or, okay, what if my whole life and leaving that group and all that fucking struggle And now I'm at this point where like what if all that still amounts to nothing? You know what I mean? What if all that still amounts to, I guess the only way it could amount to nothing is if I, sure, yeah, it's fucking corny, but like if I didn't try or whatever. But like, what if I try? Like, what if I did move to fucking New York, which I've been really sincerely planning for a while? What if I do that and I'm still going to be, I don't know. I was so used to that idea of like, oh, I'm always going to be me. I'm always going to be this loser where like, oh, even if I go to New York, I still can't. Like, no. In fucking reality, New York will be fucking different. My life is already, even me now in the Bay Area, is different than I was 6 fucking months ago, much less a year and a half ago. Okay? Yes, my ego follows me. Yes, it's not, New York is not going to fix me, but my life can be different, right?
Okay, but here's what I'm hearing. You don't need to be fixed. You just need to go and grow and evolve, because it's going to change, because you're not going to know what's going to happen in New York unless you fucking go to New York. Right. And then something's going to happen and you don't know who you're going to meet or what it's going to look like or how you're going to make it. But your idea of how you're going to make it isn't making it. Making it is getting on the plane and moving to New York. And then you've made it. And then you're in New York and then you do the next thing. And that's where it is. And that's what I have found is the reality of it all.
Right.
Oh, Pete.
Oh, fuck off.
Oh.
All right.
And that's what it is. And that's why I feel comfortable with myself. Because if I look at my life on paper at 54 years old with all of my degrees and all of my languages, I work for, I do computer work and I work as a waitress.
Right.
But when I look at it realistically from the outside looking in without the papers, I'm amazing. I touch lives.
But no, that's fucking. But I am. That's legit.
I'm amazing. I touch people's lives. I get on planes. I do 5-hour workshops where I'm texting with people and I'm helping them find out who they are.
Right.
I'm giving them the tools to get in touch with themselves so that they could find out that they could do things that can help other people so that their lives are meaningful.
Right.
And I can do it. There is so much that I could do that I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to do. And at 54 years old, I'm almost like excited about what this next phase of my life, because I'm not retiring at 65. I'm starting a new career at 54, and that's what I'm looking at. Right. And all of a sudden, like, doors are opening to me. I've done things in the last 6 months that I never thought I could do. I paid off more than half my debt, and I've had debt follow me around from husbands number 2 and 3.
Right.
And I've paid off more than half of it. I decluttered. I'm throwing things away.
Right.
I'm showing up for people in different ways. I'm giving people the tools and I'm stepping away and I'm letting them fall on their face.
Right.
Things that I never would have done because I was so afraid if I let them do that, it would be a reflection on me.
Right.
And it's not a reflection on me.
No.
And if people make it a reflection on me, that's about them, and I don't really care. And that's why I'm in this like really good place. Like a year ago, I was like in this relationship that wasn't a relationship, that I was trying to make into a relationship, and I was looking at something and I wasn't seeing what it really was. And today I'm just in this like place of like seeing what reality is. Because if I go back far enough, and we started talking about this when I first came in, my first addiction was fantasy world.
Yeah.
Right. I remember being like 15 years old and going to the hairdresser with a picture of somebody and saying, can you please cut my hair like this? And what I was really saying was, please just make me this person. I want to be anyone but me. I don't want to be who I am.
I made up a fake name when I was in 5th grade. I was Jack. I started signing my pages Jack.
That's a great name, actually.
Oh, whatever. But like, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And that like the possibilities. So now you're no longer, just to go back to what you're saying, you're no longer in a place where someone is feeding you a message that you're a piece of shit and you can't do anything unless you run it by some sort of almighty cult leader first, which is bullshit.
Right.
And you answer to, I'm sorry to bring Hebrew National into it, a higher authority, but it is true. Hot dogs and kosher certification.
So you're saying I should call Nathan's? Is that what you're saying?
Nathan's is really good. Nathan's hot dogs are much better than Hebrew National, by the way, especially the ones on the boardwalk at Coney Island. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that like when you're like when all of that like stuff
Right.
is like gone, you know, the pomp, the circumstance, the worship of other things, as they say, and you're able to just like connect with your own inner self and get quiet in the beach with no one around, with the water. For me, like in my house with cookies and cremushka. Instagram page,
All right,
please
you
join.
Need to calm down.
I'm never gonna calm down. I had to say that.
I know.
No, but like seriously, when just the ability to be, like you
Right.
said, in the present moment,
Right.
and say, okay, I'm planning this thing, I'm gonna do it, and then whatever happens, happens.
Right.
And it's gonna be nothing short of amazing.
And that's what it is. Because part of what helped me stay that way was the idea. I mean, that's part of why I wanted it. I didn't want to, but I guess looking back on it, I wanted to keep that shit loser mentality and that identity because there weren't a lot of expectations from me. You know what I mean? When I went and visited my mom, and we were talking about possibly moving to New York, and something that they said was, well, why don't you, if that is something, just work really hard for the next 6 months. And I was like, oh yeah, like I could pick up more shifts. I could do this. I could do that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, some other pieces of my life, my sleep will suffer and whatever. But I'm doing this for this decision. I'm doing this for New York. I'm doing this. Wherever. I'm doing this for the podcast and blah, blah, blah. So since that's happening, there's been doors opening up. That's like, okay, I'm suffering for this 6 hours. "Quote unquote suffering." I'm working for this time.
Big eye roll.
Right? I'm working for this time, but like, what the fuck point was I making? All I'm saying is, I'm
that you can actually work towards it.
Right.
That you could work towards like the result without setting a goal. You could say, I'm going to do this with a plan for this result.
And at all these times, this lily pad or this fucking, this broken bridge, like, we read a book, and sometimes in this book, once in the book said, like, you cross the bridge of fucking reason over to the desired shore of faith, right? And I've been hanging on to that fucking banister like a motherfucker for a long time.
Right.
And obviously, I've let go of that in a lot of ways, and I've stepped forward in faith. But I still, like, making the fucking decision to move to New York and actually doing it, following through. Like, I've paid off a lot of shit too, and I've closed certain doors, and I've set up my life as fucking amazing versus where I was even 6 months ago. But that's a whole nother step where I could just not play the game.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? I could just say, I could keep plugging away and hit my head against this San Francisco music scene wall. I could keep doing this. Maybe this will happen, where I know in my belly, but I'll have a completely different life over there. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'll still have my character defects. And yes, I still, it's not going to fix me, but it is going to be it will close the chapter so far, right? And a piece of me, it's terrifying to close that fucking chapter. It's terrifying to go, okay, well, this is who I was in the Bay Area. Here's who I am over there. Now I'm going to have a whole new set of fucking places to go, a whole new set of friends that we know, a whole new set of everything, whole new set of, I'm just starting all over in a lot of ways. And that may be refreshing and great and honestly what I want to do. But, it's not my fucking blanket that I have around me right now.
But here's what I hear the lie that you tell yourself is.
Right.
That you need to be fixed.
Yeah.
You don't need to be fixed. You could just go to New York as an evolution of what's next. I don't need to be fixed. Right. I don't need any person, place, or thing to fix me. I could just do the next thing as a course of action, and there's no failure because if that next thing doesn't work out, there'll be another next thing because there's always a next thing. Right?
I always forget that one. That's the one that's why I need you fuckers around me. Because that's the one I always forget is that, oh, wait a second, I don't need to be fixed. It's not like if I work hard enough, It's like, no, like
you're already okay right now.
Ain't that some fucking shit? God damn it.
And that's the truth. And evolution-wise, what is it now? 16 years. Evolution-wise, yeah, you're okay. Right. You're not like a crazy fucking psycho. No. You're showing up. You're just like I am. Right. I managed to have a reasonable life. Right. I go to the grocery store. I cook my food. I wash my dishes. I mop my floor.
Right. And I'm constantly looking at this imaginary scoreboard that's like, well, I can't enjoy it right now because I still have these problems.
You know. So, I mean, yeah.
There's always going to be problems.
Everybody's always going to have shit in their life.
Right.
Everybody. And everybody has. And people talk to me, like random people talk to me. People talk to me in line in the grocery store. Mm-hmm. I mean, like people tell me their stuff all the time. Everybody has stuff.
Right.
And it's not like, oh my God, there's problems are worse than mine. No, but everybody has stuff proportionally. So I'm just like everybody else, but different, because I realize that everybody has stuff, and I realize that what helps my stuff is helping somebody else. And that also what I've learned is that what helps my stuff is when I call other people and say, I need some help right now because I'm really like needing someone to talk me off a ledge, or needing somebody to give me a different perspective. It's not just helping other people. And I'm all about helping other people all the time as a means to, let go of myself. But I've also learned that it is okay to call someone else and say, this shit's really hard. Can you please help me?
Right.
And that took me a long time to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Without being a victim, crying. Like there's a difference, like I have people who call me up and they're, oh, my life is falling apart. And you can't get a word in edgewise.
Right.
And that's not what I'm talking about.
No. Interesting.
What's interesting about it?
It's just, it's interesting how, another weird thought is that this is every episode's kind of different. To put it in the, this is a very different episode, obviously, but I know that there's somebody. Obviously we know tons of people who are going to listen to this who like relate, right? And some of the details, especially the whole group or whatever, you don't understand what the fuck we're saying, but that's okay. You have your own versions of it.
We know what we're talking about,
and we know, right? But it's interesting. It's interesting that this is the life that I get to. I didn't know necessarily that this conversation would take that turn. You know what I mean? Sometimes it does. It's interesting to like ride the wave of it. So anyway, how are you doing on time? It's 1:18 right now.
I'm fine.
You okay? Okay.
Yeah, I have no. I'm on vacation.
Yes, you are.
I
am. So. I'm interested. I mean, I don't know if we could get through it in time. I'm sure it's a long fucking conversation. But what's wrong? What's wrong with Palestine again? what's? Because I knew I wanted to get.
We're talking about Israel.
We're talking about fucking yeah, exactly. So all right. What's a very how do we synopsize this? How do we get this? I'm sure it's not an easy fix. But so we're fighting over land? Is that what people are doing over there?
Oh my God. Are we fighting over land? Israel gave so much land back to Palestine.
Okay. So when did this start? We don't need to.
When did it not start?
Okay.
When did it not start? You know what?
So this was back to like before Jesus? After Jesus times? What was it?
I'm sure it was. No, I think it was after. The truth is, I'm not really sure when it started.
Okay.
I tend to be very pro-Israel.
Sure.
And yet, I'm not. I believe that it is Israel. I don't believe that it is Palestine.
Okay.
Full stop.
Okay.
But. Thus said, I mean, there's so many other Arab countries. Why aren't the other Arab countries? I mean, Israel is this small little dot in the middle of like all the Arab countries that hate it. So why aren't the other Arab countries absorbing the Palestinians? I mean, that's a very legit, real question. But
the Palestinians, Palestinians is a person, is a people.
Okay. As a people.
Are they Islamic or are they?
They're Arab.
Okay.
And
so they follow different religions.
Some of them are Muslim and some of them are Christian.
Okay.
So like we were friends with this group of we meaning Alex and I when we lived in Israel. Mm-hmm. We would go up to Ramat Golan, the Golan Heights, which is on the border of Syria, and we had these really good friends that were Druze that were Israeli Arabs. So they were Israeli citizens, but they were Arabs. They were Muslim. They followed the Muslim religion. It was really always fun to go up and visit them because they lived right on this border called the Shouting Border. Because in, I think it was 1967, there was a border that was made between Israel and Syria. And you can't leave. So the Syrians in Syria can't leave to go into Israel, and the Syrians in Israel can't leave to go into Syria. It's a very difficult political convoluted situation, and I could have it wrong because I haven't read about it in years, but this is what it was. Right. But the Shouting Border is where the family that was in Syria and the family that's in Israel, they go to this border and they speak to each other and they shout. And it's called the Shouting Border. I like it's that. Very Mediterranean.
You would fit right in.
I do.
Right. So continue.
So so there's, I mean, Israel itself is a democratic country that has Arabs, Muslims, women, men, all different people. Like even in
when was it established?
Beit of Knesset. Israel was established in 1948.
Okay.
By the United Nations, and Israel was given to the world. The world gave Israel as compensation for World War II because prior to World War II, Palestine was occupied by the British.
Ah, okay.
So, there was a lot of things that happened historically where Israel was restored to the Jewish people.
But there were Jews there before.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There were always Jews. There were Sabras. I mean, one of my aunts is a Sabra. She's like a 7th, 8th.
Oh, that's where that hummus company, Sabra.
That's where they got their name from. Yes.
Interesting. Good.
Yes.
Okay.
A Sabra is a Jew who is an Israeli who goes their lineage back to Israel. I think my Aunt Shulamith is, I feel like she's a 13th generation Israeli. So going back to Palestine, because Israel didn't become Israel until 1948. So now we just celebrated 80 years.
Okay.
But it's just always been like this hotbed. I mean, there's like crazy things that happen. Like people just like kill people.
Right.
And that's where like the problem is. I saw this really great comedian named Hannah Gadsby. She's an Australian comedian. Sure. I saw it on Netflix. And she talked about tension. And she talked about how laughter and anger can both infuse a room with tension. And they're both contagious. To the point where you might not know what you're laughing about, or you might not even know what you're angry about. Mm-hmm. And I think that the situation, very simply put, in the Middle East is nobody even knows what they're fighting about anymore.
They've already, right. You're infused with your side.
Right.
And you will die for your side, or you will kill for your side.
Exactly.
But you were friends with Muslims over there.
Yes, and I'm friends with Muslims here. I help Muslims. Yeah. I mean, I have no problem with Muslim people or Muslims or even the Muslim religion. What I have a problem with is terrorists.
Right.
I have some issues with Hamas.
Right.
I know. I mean, there are issues with people who just like kill somebody. Like there was a recent meeting, I think it was the Jewish holidays were in September. So sometime in that area, it was before I went to Europe, but after the Jewish holidays, this Israeli man who was very vocal, journalist in Israel, in his 40s with like 4 kids or 5 kids or something. I think he was an American who had made Aliyah. Aliyah means to return. Because any Jew in the world can move to Israel and become a citizen and get help from the state and be set up, period. You make Aliyah. They give you free Hebrew lessons. They give you like appliances. I mean, they help you.
Right.
They'll give you money. So, and even if you're an Israeli, like you were born in Israel and you come here and you move back, you can get, Aliyah status of somebody because all it means is to return.
Okay.
And so when I went back as an adult, I made Aliyah again and I got the benefits from the state. But he was like in a grocery store and somebody like killed him. I mean, like that kind of stuff, like it becomes insane.
Right.
it becomes insane. And
Hamas is are they the ruling kind of government, or no? They're
just
a
terrorist organization.
Terrorist organization, and they're centered in Palestine.
Yeah, but in Israel.
In Israel. Well, okay.
I don't call it Palestine.
Now, okay, so the exact borders of Israel was established in 1948.
Yes.
And then
they've been changed.
But
many times.
Okay.
Many times. We lost, we gave back, we lost. I think now we don't have, we gave away the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. I don't think we have it anymore.
Okay.
Don't quote me because I haven't.
Sure.
But I'm pretty positive. And then you have the settlements. So you have a lot of settlements. You have a lot of Israeli settlements in predominantly Arab-based dwelling lands. Mm-hmm. Where you have a lot of Jews live in these settlements, and a lot of them live peacefully. And there's lots of organizations where it's called I can't remember the name of it exactly, so I'm not gonna say it, but it's an organization where Palestinians and Jews work together and raise their children together. They have organizations like that. And then there's an organization called SICK, which is Stop Inciting Children to Kill, SICK, and it's against the logo. I have their card in one of my books is a little Palestinian child being held by a Palestinian father. They both have guns in their hand with the child with the logo going, when I grow up, I want to be a suicide bomber in Israel, Mm-hmm. So, and again, you don't hear so much about suicide bombs now as you do about random killings, which is also really interesting. When I lived in Israel from 2001 to 2004, it was the height of the Intifada, and there was a lot of suicide bombs. Mm-hmm. And the profile of a suicide bomber was, a young Palestinian man between the ages of 17 and 21. Right. He looked like a young Israeli soldier, because we look alike. We're cousins. We look alike. You could look at me and say, "Ooh, Robi, you look Israeli." You could say, "Oh, Robi, you look like an Arab." Now,
when you were living there, how did you reconcile the danger? How did you? I mean, part of it is obviously the places we go and the,
right. It doesn't feel as dangerous when you're living there as when you're out. I remember when I was living there would be stuff happening. There would be situations, and my mother would call me up crazed, and I wouldn't even feel it. I wouldn't even feel it. You would just, I remember going to Jerusalem and going by the Shuk, the outdoor market, and then, the next day there was, a huge bomb that went off there, and I remember just not feeling it. But you do, but you don't.
Right.
And
not feeling it emotionally.
No, meaning, not feeling not I'm not going to go out. No, emotionally you feel it.
Okay.
But not I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to function because there's stuff going on. But there was limited. I mean, the cafes were less populated. There were things. I lived there during a bad time. Mm-hmm. It's better now.
Right.
And again, there's not
even with them with Trump moving the capital. It hasn't or no, I'm sorry, the embassy.
I thought he moved the capital. I thought what he did was he declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Yeah. The embassy I believe that there is an embassy in Tel Aviv. Israel's small. Israel's the size of Rhode Island.
Right.
You can drive from one end of Israel to the other in 8 hours.
Okay.
It's not a big country. It's tiny.
Right.
It's I once saw this. I have it on my phone. It's one of those little memes or something, and it says Israel. It says the big bad country that's threatening all these other countries. The little bad country in this neighborhood, and you see how big. Right. You see the perspective of how big the Arab countries are. And Israel's teeny. Right. Teeny tiny. Right. I have to pee again. How many minutes has it been?
No. I guess it's been 48? Almost an hour. It's been almost an hour.
All right. So we're gonna hold this thought.
All right, I'm gonna piss too.
Okay.
All right. Hang on.
I lasted an hour. Wow.
All right. So,
yes.
Welcome back from the urine break.
Thank you.
What's when you were living over there? When would you feel? Would you feel weird looks? Was there anti-Semitic? How would it affect your life on a daily basis?
It wasn't anti-Semitism.
Really?
No, it was terrorism. There's a difference.
No, I know, but would you get, fucking, people looking at you strange? Would it be
Everyone's
any
Jewish
sort of...
in Israel.
Ah.
Everyone's Jewish in Israel.
Okay.
It's not like here. You're either Jewish or Arab, but there's.
But Arabs wouldn't treat you poorly.
Well, the strong power in Israel is the Jews.
Right.
So no,
But I'm saying, like,
and then there's
supermarket or at the, bank or whatever. No.
It was all Jews. It was all
Okay.
Israelis. No, I didn't. There were places I wouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And even that's probably not true. I mean, one time the supermarket that I went to frequently, there was a bomb near it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my mother freaking out, and I mean, when the stuff hit close to home, it hit close to home. But it's a small country, so it's always going to hit close to home.
Right.
I mean, my aunt, who's well in her 90s now, would say things like, the more that they try and keep us from living our lives, the more we need to go out there and go to the cafes and the museums and
right.
Go live your life.
It's
just a tension. Even if you're not at war, you're always feeling like you have to be ready to go to war. Everybody's in the reserves. So it's just a different world. But even the world of Israel in 1990s and the early 2000s is different than the world of Israel. In 1948, you had the Sabras, and then you had all of the people who had just been persecuted by Hitler and by that whole regime in Europe. So now you're getting all of these Eastern European immigrants into Israel who that's never going to happen to us again. And then you have the immigrants who went to the United States. It was a different mentality. They built up finances and other things. Mm-hmm. Israel, I mean, like,
control the media. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, damn well, or die trying. Hello.
So it was a different mentality because...
It was just a different mentality in 1948 than in, like, 1998.
Right.
I just that 50 years. And, now people get out of going to the army. Then you wouldn't even think of it.
Right.
Because you wanted to...
protect the cause. You wanted to make sure, yeah.
Well, it's really interesting. I saw this movie. I like to watch Israeli TV.
Okay.
So I watch Israeli TV on, like, Netflix or Amazon Prime. Mm-hmm. I saw this movie called The Other Son, and it was a really interesting movie. I don't remember the years.
The Other Son, S-O-N.
S-O-N.
Okay.
I'll try and look it up to find it. And it was a movie about a woman who had a child, in a hospital at a time that there was a situation, a pagua, something happened, and here it is. And it came... Complex repercussions face two families, one Israeli, one Palestinian, after learning that their sons were accidentally switched at birth. It was a very interesting movie. It's a really, really, really good movie. Okay. It was made in 2012.
Okay.
And I enjoyed it.
But it's in Hebrew.
It's in Hebrew. It's in Hebrew and in Arab.
Okay.
Arabic with English subtitles.
Okay.
But it was really interesting. Like there was something that happened, and the children were born, and they were each brought up in their respective families. The Palestinian child was brought up as an Israeli, and the Israeli child was brought up as a Palestinian. Very interesting. The one who was brought up as the Palestinian one, who was brought up as an Israeli, he was living in Europe, and he was going to school to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. The Palestinian boy was supposed to go to the army. His father was a professional, because in Israel we only have to go to the army for a certain time. Mm-hmm. The father was a professional army sergeant, general. I mean, he was up there. He wasn't a sergeant. He was a general. And his son didn't want to go to the army. His son was a musician, and he had to come to terms with the fact that his son wasn't his son, but it was his son. And so he had raised someone else's child,
sure,
who was Palestinian. And this The fathers had a harder time than the mothers, and then they each had sisters, and then the Palestinian boy had a brother. And what the father did was he ended up getting them papers so that they could cross the border and, cross over into the Israeli part of Israel. And it was everything that happened with it. It was such an interesting story because it had to break down everything because there was an underlying story that the Israeli family had always had, the husband and wife had always had a hard time because the husband always suspected that the woman had an affair because their child didn't look like them or wasn't anyone. And the child identified, the young man, he was like 18, identified as being Jewish because he was raised that way. But the minute they found out he was Palestinian, the rabbi didn't treat him as if he was Jewish anymore. Right. So it was so interesting.
Okay, first things first.
Okay, or second things second.
So military is a huge part of life over there. It's not like it is here. Mm-mm. Like it is here, it's like, well, in the media anyway, it's like this weird kind of side thing that some people do that nobody chooses to do unless you're fucking, in the southern town, you know what I mean? Like, but over there, it's a more working part of life, huh? Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you face anti-Semitism when you were growing up, or was it so insular that it didn't affect you?
It was insular, and then we moved to New Jersey, and then I went to public school, and I lived in a predominantly there were so many Jews in the area we lived in that we were closed on the Jewish holidays, but I lived in like a melting pot of first and second generation,
right?
And
there's a difference. There's a difference between teasing or whatever, or like that type of shit, versus legit ass anti-Semitism. I
didn't deal with anti-Semitism. I remember my mother telling me she dealt more with it. My mother was afraid of black people growing up.
Okay.
That was like really, really, really hard for her. Just where she grew up in Brooklyn and that the neighborhoods that she grew up in were less
rough.
Yeah, and so she was afraid. Now she's not, I don't think, but even so, I think she has a little bit of, fear, whereas I, as you know, don't have that fear. Need we say more?
Well, it's a wonderful podcast. But
no, I didn't. I mean, I grew up in very Jewish areas. So it's not like I grew up in bumfuck Arkansas.
Right.
There are places in the United States. I mean, I was at work on Christmas Eve, and one of the guys I work with, sweet kid, from Albania, and I bought in cookies, which I don't eat, but I bought in cookies for everybody because we were working on Christmas Eve, and I thought it would be really nice. And I always work Christmas Eve because I have customers who love me and want to have Christmas with me, and because it's not a holiday that I need to celebrate, so it's fine for me to work and let my friends who celebrate have that night off.
Right.
And we walked in and he was like, he made an offhand comment. Now, granted, he's also a Trump supporter, which I'm not, and we enough said about that. But he made this offhand comment that was like, "You don't celebrate Christmas, do you, Robi? You don't even believe in Jesus, and the Jews even killed Jesus." And I was just like, and I don't even want to mention his name. I was like, what, sweetie, you just need to stop right now. You need to stop right now because your facts are so like far off.
That's more Albania than it is Trump. That's more Albania.
No,
Albania.
That's very Albania. No, that's very Albania. He has other things about Trump too, but that's a whole nother story that I don't need to get in. I mean, whatever. I can give you my opinions on Trump, but it was that to me is anti-Semitism,
right?
And that comes from ignorance,
right?
Just like it all comes from ignorance. But I didn't necessarily, like I said...
But sometimes it comes from experience. I don't think the anti-Semitism necessarily does, because I think a lot of that is just someone told me that they are this way. Someone said they did this to our country or to our people, so that's why. Your mom's experience with black people, that taught her, even if it was wrong, to be afraid of having that experience. So that's why I think there's such a thing as racial, where like, okay, if I touch a stove a certain amount of times, my favorite comedian of all time, Patrice, used to say, how many times do I have to have a certain experience with a certain type of person before I'm allowed to go, okay, here we go? You know what I mean?
Right.
How many times do I have to get cut off by an Asian to say I don't like Asian drivers? Does that mean I don't think they should drive? No, they should. They're just as human as me. Let's break bread and love you, and you know, blah blah blah. But I'm allowed to go like, here we go, right?
Right.
So there's racial.
Well, then you could say that we have that in the restaurant with different ethnic groups and how they tip.
Right, exactly. Fucking exactly.
Right? And we'll say, here they are, and you know you're not going to get a good tip from them, and you know that they want water without ice, and that's the way it is.
Right.
And you're just going to go there
water without ice. Oh my God, yeah. Or if there's Asian ladies, they want hot water with lemon.
All of them.
All the
fucking ones.
Time.
No, and the Indians want water, no ice.
Yeah.
You know?
And a lot of Europeans they want soda with no ice, which is fucking, ugh, what's wrong with you, right?
Yeah, but they don't, in Europe.
They don't have ice.
You don't do ice.
Right.
Especially in the winter.
Right, well, yeah. But also, I have found, here's my personal experience of being a server. I think if you are a Mexican born in Mexico, you tip. If you're a Mexican born in America, if you're like second generation Mexican, I don't think you tip very well at all. That's my personal experience. Or
all the Mexicans I wait on work in restaurants and they all tip me well.
Okay, maybe that's it. But like also Eastern Europeans, like there's a certain like flair to that.
Europeans don't tip well.
What
unless
is that?
This is rescue remedy.
Let me see.
No alcohol, no sugar.
Okay.
Feeds my oil fixation.
Soothing pastilles.
Yes, have one. They're from Europe.
Blackcurrant?
Blackcurrant.
All right. So, interesting.
I like them.
Yeah. So, but like, how many times do I have to have that experience before I'm allowed to, right? So sometimes it's not so much just ignorance. Sometimes it's experience. But I can't really see, I mean, I guess before in Germany, they were having the experience of thinking that their experience was that. Sometimes our experience lies to us, right? Mm-hmm. You and I both know that. But our perspective, maybe their German perspective was these, Jews are stealing our jobs or whatever. You know what I mean? Like the reason why we're poor is because of the Juden. You know what I mean? The reason why, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so all they needed is someone to tell them that and to get them frothed up and shit. Right? So I can't see an experience with a Jew being that, you know what I mean? Like maybe annoying in certain ways, like the tipping thing or whatever. Or, like
American Jews tip well.
But
your experience with me has been amazing from day one. Let's just call it that. American Jews tip really well.
Yeah.
You're not complaining. And Israelis.
You're not listening to the podcast.
Israelis don't tip as well.
Right.
In general, one of my issues with that, just to sidetrack for a minute, is that I'm multilingual and I'm multicultural.
Sure.
I've lived and worked all over the world. So
right.
I spend time understanding the different social mores of a country.
Right.
Even down to touch. Mm-hmm. There are certain things. I'm a very touchy person, but there are certain countries where it's not appropriate to touch.
Right.
Or shake your hand or whatever. Mm-hmm. I actually have a book about it where I've looked. I happen to tip when I'm in Europe, which always makes people feel good, but I don't have to.
Right.
But my feeling about it as a person who has been a server for the better part of, God help me, 40 years,
sure.
Okay, is that if you're coming to the United States from another country, you fucking find out what it is and you tip appropriately.
Right. Don't
leave me 10% on a $500 bill when I've kissed your ass and you work for Facebook.
Right.
In Brazil. You come to the mothership, Thank you.
I have that with English people. English people will be so happy.
Also.
I had a lovely time. Thank you so much. Here's $5 fucking. Fuck you. Like, there's such a, like, you should know better. You should know better. That's why, sometimes people's bad reflection of Americans is the same way. Some of our worst go on a tour of fucking, wherever, and just are loud and obnoxious and whatever.
It's
some
not
of,
the
some
loud,
of
it's
Europe's
the entitlement. Worst. It's the entitlement. Because I worked on cruise ships and I worked in Europe and I worked with non-American companies, and the problem they had with the Americans was in general the entitlement.
The I want to talk to your manager type of attitude.
Entitlement.
Right.
But I remember, because I was a big time expat and I was living in Israel when 9/11 happened. And I remember at that moment feeling like I was American.
Right.
And it was very interesting. And there's a lot of Americans who live in Israel.
Right.
There's a lot of American transplants.
Well, because culture-wise, it's not a huge, because
it's
of
totally
democracy. No, it's totally different.
Yeah.
But it's not as hard a fucking transition as Iran. Like, if I went to go live in Tehran
impossible.
right now,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
No, there's malls in Israel.
Right.
There's malls and beach and coffee.
Right, exactly.
You could go to your hipster coffee or you can go to your local coffee,
Right,
and,
right.
yeah.
There's a lot of technology over there. There's amazing shit going on over
Technology
there.
comes from there. If you're going
Right.
to boycott Israel, you're going to boycott, like, let's not flush a toilet.
Nice.
True.
So what was the experience of the expats or from even people who were annoyed with Americans when 9/11 happened?
That wasn't the experience. My experience was I was very attached to being an expat. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to come back to America. Mm. And it was still a few years. I came back to America in 2004, so it was still 3 years. Even then, if my husband Alex at the time hadn't pushed me, I would have stayed in Israel. Mm-hmm. I kind of was that I remember being 15 years old. Now I was 15 in 1979. The world was different, but I remember being 15 years old and being a Zionist and I want to go to Israel.
Right.
And there's a part of me too that sometimes is sad, even though I know I could always do anything and make a choice, that I didn't, as a young age, immigrant to Israel and set my life up there because I believed in it. I'm kind of yes, and I will die for my country kind of person. But
Right.
I really didn't want to die for my country. I really didn't want to die for anyone. But there was something that I feel a connection. Going back to my trip to Scotland, I felt enchanted. I felt like Scotland got my spirit, and I felt like Greece, because I lived there for so long, and I had this instant connection. Greece has my heart, but I felt like Israel represents my soul for me. Mm-hmm. And I've and that's why the experience with Scotland was so deep, because I've had those experiences only in 2 other places, and one was Israel. Israel totally has my soul, represents my soul, and Greece totally represent my heart. Mm-hmm. And then my whole spirit, the whole spiritual side of me was totally encompassed in Scotland. Right. So going back to Israel, it's it was a meshing. I feel comfortable. I wait on people and they're like, oh, you're from New York, you're from the East Coast. And then all of a sudden my voice gets more like this. And I'm oh my God, yes. And I but there was something that happens to me in Israel that I can't explain it, but it's I am exactly who I am and where I'm supposed to be, mm-hmm. that I don't necessarily feel in the same way anywhere else, even though I feel it other places. So then I go back to living in Israel as an adult in the height of the Intifada, and I was just so happy to be in Israel. Mm-hmm. And to be hearing Hebrew and to be speaking Hebrew and so much. I mean, I watch Israeli TV or an Israeli show every single day, or an Israeli comedian. I have to hear the language every single day. It's a part of my soul. It's a part of my being. You don't feel it the same way when you're there, but then when something happens, then you feel it. I remember the buses were a big deal when I lived there. So I would get on these little buses, the monit, these little vans mm-hmm. that oh God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 people could fit on. Mm. They were small, and they would do the same route as the buses. And it would be a dance between what day should I get on a bus and what day should I get on a little van, and you would watch the people who were getting on them, and you would look at everybody, and you would think. And then I worked at this place I worked for when I lived in Israel. I worked at a company called it wasn't Ahava. This guy's name was Yudah Maccabee, and he made Dead Sea skin products. And I basically was
What's Dead Sea skin?
The Dead Sea.
Right.
Is
skin products?
No, it's products from the salts of the Dead Sea. So the Dead Sea, the waters are toxic. It's heavy salt. They don't flow in, they don't flow out. Okay. But it's very, if you go in the Dead Sea and you come out, your skin feels amazing, and it will last for 3 days, it's never felt. So it's a big market in Israel. So Ahava is the biggest company, and this guy Yudah Maccabee, I still have some of his soaps at home, even from that long ago. make products out of the Dead Sea. And one of the things I did, I was kind of like the marketing person with the embassies in the other countries. But in order to get there from where I lived, I would either walk, I think it was like a half a mile or a mile, and then, or I would take one bus to the other bus. Usually I would walk, and I would take a bus to the little, the little minivan, minuit, the little taxi kind of thing with 10 people. And then I would get off, and then it was like 2 or 3 kilometers from where I got off. I think it was 2 kilometers because it wasn't far to where I worked, but it was too far to walk. And so maybe it was 3 kilometers. And there was I can't remember, but I just remember I
just love the minutia. That's
right. Well, you know how I am.
I know.
So anal
I'm trying to think
shit.
about my listeners.
Your listeners will love me.
They do.
Anyway, but what happened was I could either take a bus or a little van, or I could hitchhike. And everyone hitchhiked. So I would hitchhike.
Really?
Yeah. So I would hitchhike.
Weird.
So it was in this place called Beit Dagan. Bayit is like house, Dagan with a D, because there's another one called Bayit Vigan in Yerushalayim.
Right.
And it was right near Ramallah, which is very Arab occupied. So the people who would drive down that road were either Arabs or religious Jews.
Okay.
And I would only get in the car with a religious Jew.
Right.
I would get in a car with an Arab. And I would usually, it was a job, so I would be there around the same time. So usually the same person. And on the way home, one of my coworkers would drop me off at the bus. So I wouldn't have to take the second bus. Because that second bus could hold me up because it wouldn't come. And that could hold me up for like a half hour, 40 minutes. Whereas I could just hitchhike and be there in 10 minutes.
Right.
So, but I would make a conscious decision not to get in a car with an Arab.
Right. Because of stories you would hear.
And just, it was too scary.
Right.
I was right by Ramallah. It was just not safe.
Right. Now, you have good experiences with Arabic people and Muslims here, obviously.
And there.
And there, too.
And there.
Okay.
And there.
But, so how would they reconcile? Did they ever talk about how to reconcile people in their families who were more extreme or?
No, people don't talk about it. At least not in the circles I was in. I think that there were circles that people talked about. I mean,
Sure.
like, I have a really good friend, a special friend, like some of the special friends we have.
Very special.
Very special. Who lives in Israel, and she's lived there for over 20 years, and we've been friends for 12 and a half now. And she is a dental hygienist, and she was talking about going into doing some work at one of the dental clinics in Ramallah, actually. So it was like an interesting conversation because that was near where I used to work. And, there's trepidation. There's still trepidation, but, and she's a religious Jew, and she prefers to deal with Arabs than religious Jews most of the time. Yeah.
Was there trepidation like when your family moved, when your mom, was she over there? No, she was born in America.
There's lots of controversy.
Okay.
But no, my father's family is a family that was from Israel.
Okay.
I believe my mother came over here when she was really young from Europe.
Okay.
Both of my parents were raised here, but they came really, really young.
Okay.
So, no, my mother never lived in Israel.
Okay. Was there, you have people in your family who survived the Holocaust?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, grandparents. All my grandparents. And survived, escaped, and most of them lost all their family. The majority of their family. My grandmother, a lot of her family escaped and got here. My grandfather on my mother's side
escaped before they
escaped before the persecution.
Right. Okay.
My grandfather on my mother's side lost the majority of brothers, sisters, and everyone. I'm trying to remember, and I don't think he had any. I think he was the only one who made it. And that story was really interesting because my grandmother went from New York to Poland in 1939 to marry him in an arranged marriage and get him out. Who the fuck goes to Poland in 1939?
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And that's why there's all this controversy about when they got back, because my mother was born in 41. My father's father, 2 of his brothers I feel like it was just two. My Uncle Pinchas, who was his youngest brother, they all went to Israel, and then my grandfather and Sam, they came to New York, and Pinchas, he stayed in Israel, and he married my aunt Shulamith, who was like the 13th generation Sabra.
Mm-hmm. And that was 48 or afterwards, or no? That was before 48.
No, they got there before 48. They escaped,
Okay.
and they got there before, but he stayed.
Okay, but you still called it Israel. So it was.
Oh, it wasn't
went
Israel. It was
okay.
Palestine. It was
Okay,
Palestine.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
at that time. But I just called it Israel. But no,
Sure,
it was Palestine at that time.
Okay.
For sure.
But it was still a safe haven because of the Sabras and because of the culture already established. And
Yes,
things like,
but
okay.
it's interesting because like in Israel, there's like we have our own version of Ellis Island. It's called Atlit, and it's Caesarea, and they would be in DP camps, displaced person camps. So, people came over. My Aunt Lily was, I want to say she was 14 when she got here. She was 4. She was from Belgium. She was 4. And her mother left her, I want to get the story right, and I'm probably not. Her mother left her with a Christian family in a farmhouse, and her brother was, I think he was like 10 years older than her. He was a lot older than her, or maybe not. I don't know the age. I know the minutiae. I hear you. But she was left there. She never saw her parents again. She got to Israel and she was 14. I believe her brother was 17. They were in Atlit. They were in a DP camp. She was adopted by a family. She, married her husband, created a life in Israel, and, her story was that she hid in this farmhouse from these, with these Christian people who told her that if she made noise, they would kill her.
So the Christian people
Saved her life, but they would kill her if she got them killed.
Right.
So, and then she got to Israel. So you get to Atlit, and there was this displaced persons camp for people until they sorted it out. So remember, until 1948, Israel was British ruled.
Right.
And then, once Israel became non-British ruled, and some of the speculation because I'm not like up on the history, but now you have a country trying to run itself that doesn't have a lot of experience running itself. And then you have, the majority of the people are now immigrants who just came from the Holocaust, who just survived like, horrors of human treatment. I mean, so much. And then basically going to war. Going to war. And then from 1948 to 1967, the Jews weren't able to get to the Western Wall because the Arabs had won, the Palestinians, had won that part of Jerusalem.
Okay.
I just did half English, half Hebrew. Jerusalem or Yerushalayim. So the Palestinians had gotten that, and then in 1967, when we won that war, we were able then to go. They have all those pictures of the soldiers praying at the wall because we got the wall back. It's hard to know if there's ever going to be a peace. Even the way I talk about it, we got the wall. I mean, even the words I'm using as, a person who is a first generation who grew up in America, even though I lived there.
Sure.
I still talk like that. So, and I fancy myself to be open-minded.
Sure.
And I think I am.
Well, here's the problem. The people.
Tell me the problem.
Some of the problem. I'm gonna a little bit of a rant, but the reality is even though I'm very liberal in a lot of different ways, blah blah blah. A lot of the motherfuckers on the left right now who are screaming about free Palestine or won't let Canadians, like apparently anytime you have at a Canadian university, anytime you're going to have like an event where you like a celebration or whatever, you first have to say, let's all be aware that this is stolen land from the Native Americans, then blah blah blah. Okay. What's the end game of that? The end game of that is, okay, I always say it's like fucking even Stevens or whatever. It's like, well, we had it first. Okay, well, who had it before you? Oh, these other people had it first. Oh, okay, well, if no one belongs anywhere if that's the fucking case. Because there's more fucking people now than there were 500 years ago. There's millions upon millions. Let's be fucking real.
I'm fucking with you. I'm fucking with you. And you know
what? And give it back to the Mexicans. Well, the Mexicans stole it from someone else. Oh, okay, well, who had it first? Okay, who had... Just, you're fucking stupid. We have to use the logic in this. And the reality is things are now. Don't be brutal. Don't be shitty. Okay, let's figure it out as best we can. But if you're trying, the Palestinians got it from fucking someone else. Let's be fucking real. You know what I mean? Like, be fucking real.
I mean, I totally agree with you. And then we can go back and we can look at what's going on to bring Brexit back into it. We can look at what's going on with Brexit, because then you deal with Ireland. And then you have Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and Southern Ireland, which is part of Europe. And now you're going to have a border across that country. Mm-hmm. And it is fucking insane. You know, that none of us can live, that we can't.
Yeah, I've very little to know about it, but
they need to do some written inventory on themselves, these countries.
Well, and sometimes it has to do with who's coming in and who they want to stop from coming in, because they're having the experience. Because a lot of these Canadian, same thing in Canada, a lot of these European countries are getting an influx of people from Syria, and it's not Muslim hate necessarily, but if your experience is your experience, like I've seen lots of videos where like. These certain type of culture, maybe not race, but you can be culturist if you want. But like where certain types of there'll be like malls in Canada where it's just Muslim men in the middle of the day. The women are at work, and the Muslim men just go and hang out. You know what I mean? Because they make their women do the work, and they just are. There's violent gangs, there's bad shit going on. It's not like, oh, you have brown skin, I hate you. It's like, wait a second, I have my experience that is teaching me hot stove. Let me react to that fucking hot stove. It may be an overreaction, it may be the wrong reaction, but it is something, rather than, oh, just let everyone in all the time and just never, no bad experience with anybody, and just cover my head like nothing's going wrong, la la la. You know what I mean? Like, there's experiences teaching us, right? So that's all I'm,
I mean, I can say to you that I don't care who comes into this country, but become legal.
Right.
I went to many countries, and I learned the language. Mm-hmm. Maybe not perfectly, but I would learn the language.
And you would assimilate into the culture. Because it's rude for me to go to Germany. I've said this on the podcast. It's rude for me to go to Germany and say, hey, can you change this sign into English? Also, I want to hang out with only English people or English-speaking people. Also, I don't really want to follow these rules. Also, I want the government to take care of me financially.
But let me tell you what happens. This is what's really interesting. But it's rude. But even in, I mean, let's go back. Little Italy, Japantown, Chinatown, Jewtown. You know, I mean, Alex was originally Romanian. Mm-hmm. Everywhere we went, we would have like a group of Romanian friends. We were just attracted. Right. How many Israeli friends I have? Like attracts like also.
Oh, and I'm down with that.
So no, but so there's that. But then there's the other thing of, I'm down with anyone coming in if you're going to become part of.
Right.
I'm paying back taxes.
Right.
I'm paying motherfucking back taxes to Uncle Sam. So don't come in here and don't pay taxes when I'm working my ass off.
Right.
I don't care who you are, where you come from.
Exactly.
You know, I would go to other countries and I would do it. I would do it right. Not that I'm perfect. I'm not. You know that.
No, neither am I.
But I'm close.
We're all cutting corners, and I wouldn't say I've been 100% honest with the IRS at all times. Let's just say
nobody is. Nobody. Well, I'm not even.
But like I said, if I move to Germany, why are the rules different for me than they are for someone coming into America?
Right.
You know, let's be real, right?
Right.
So anyway, I also want to know.
Tell me.
Were there pieces of, obviously, when you lose people in your family, when the Holocaust happens, and there are people who you never see again, are there times where there wasn't a definitive answer on if they died or not?
Not in my family.
Okay.
Not in my family, but I have so many friends.
Right.
And I grew up in a world where every person I knew who was over a certain age had numbers on their arms. You know, that's why I hide my tattoos. They're controversial.
Right.
But I did grow up in that world, and so there are some people who didn't know. You know, that was real. In my family, it was very definitive. Mm-hmm. Like they saw them.
And they had they had already written in books like who begat who, like there was a lineage, there was a culture passed down, within your family before then. So even when there was, because I always think like, okay, there must be not just missing people, but missing lineage, like missing like where did you come from, you know what I mean, or like where you remember who married who, and here's the locket, and here's like there's a lot of
you know what, there's someone in the family who knows all that. I feel like it's my Aunt Pearl. She has everything written down, but we know it, like we know,
okay,
we know it. But there was definitely a lot of because I just, when I think back around my mother's father, I don't remember ever meeting any relative of his at all, except for, no, the only relative was my grandmother's brother, so there was no relatives on his side. So I think there was a big loss. There was a big loss there.
And some of you said some of your family, some people actually saw, like actually went to the camps.
Oh yeah. All my grandfather's family was in the camps. I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure if it's Auschwitz or not, but all my grandfather's family was in the camps. Because I'm named after, one of the people I'm named after was my grandfather's older sister. My middle name, my grandfather's older sister, who was like his mother, and she, she had passed. And then the other name I was named after my great grandmother, my maternal grandmother's mother, who was my mother's grandmother. So yeah, they went to the camps, but they didn't survive to talk about it. The people in my family who survived had escaped. They never went to the camps.
Right.
I know people. I don't know them now, but I knew people growing up who were in the camps. I grew up hearing stories. Growing up hearing stories put me in a position where there was anything negative that happened in my life as a child, and I had those things, I told myself it wasn't so bad because I was hearing these stories. And then you had the people who never talked about it. You had all different gradations.
You mean when you would have...
I would have people who they would say...
The sexual...
No, that was, I was talking about with myself. But what I'm talking about now, in the Holocaust, you would have people who would talk about their experiences, or I would have friends who would be like, we don't talk about this in our house. We never mention it. And it was really interesting. Very interesting character traits. Children of alcoholics and children of Holocaust survivors have similar character traits.
Meaning?
They can't differentiate the true from the false. They often have low self-esteem. They question reality. Yeah. Things like that. Yeah. I mean, I didn't grow up with parents who woke up screaming from nightmares, but I have friends who did. Just like any terrorism. Mm-hmm. Just like any sort of
tragedy.
Terrorism, tragedy, or anything like happening to you. Right. Any sort of night terror.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure how we got there from Israel, but...
No, I wanted to know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's have you ever seen Everything is Illuminated?
No, what is that?
It's a great, I think you would like it. I think they did it right. It's about, it's Elijah Wood, and there's a band called Gogol Bordello, but the lead singer, Gogol Bordello.
I just love that name.
It's a funny band. And the lead singer, no, I'm okay. The lead singer is I still have it in my, it's still in my cheek. It lasts a long time.
Yeah.
But there's it's about Elijah Wood plays this member of a family who's kind of like the collector. He like collects things and makes this this is grandma's amethyst rock, which connects her to, and he's like making this kind of family tree. And he goes back to I think it was Ukraine, I think it was Ukraine, and to visit to try to figure out the lineage.
What's it called? Everything is Illuminated?
Everything is Illuminated. Great. It was a really, really good movie.
There it is. 2005.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, watch that. Oh, yeah, please read the synopsis. It's better than I.
No, it's good.
We'll read it. What does it say?
A young Jewish American man, obsessed with his family history, Jonathan Safran Foer, played by Elijah Wood, decides to journey to the Ukraine to find out more about the life of his grandfather. Guided by Alex, a rap-obsessed local, Jonathan ventures into the heartland of the Ukraine, seeking to shed light on events that occurred to his grandfather during World War II. Joining Jonathan and Alex is the latter's surly grandfather and a dog named Sammy Davis Jr. Jr.
It's a great movie.
I'm going to watch it.
It's really funny.
Can I Netflix it?
Yeah. No, it might be on Amazon Prime or Netflix or somewhere, but it's a really good movie. But yeah, it's heavy in other ways and also funny. I like heavy and funny. I think it's important.
So you can laugh and you can have laughter through tears, which is a favorite emotion of mine.
Sure, exactly. Anyway, it's about 2 hours and 34 minutes.
We should probably wrap it up.
I think obviously you and I could fucking keep going forever.
We can go for another 2
hours.
hours.
I would like to have you back on the show for sure.
I would love to be back on the show. I'm having so much fun.
Because we have a lot more to talk about. We barely got into the subject of sex.
We just kind of skirted around it.
Pardon the pun. I
would love to be back on the show. This is a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad.
And before you move to New York, please.
I know, right? I'm really.
I support you
especially
doing
our conversation. I mean, I've been having tons of these conversations.
Yeah, but I always
with my
have
family
a way.
members,
I always
with my friends.
have a way of touching you to the core.
When I was growing up, I was going to say, we did Passover a couple of times. You know,
You're part Jewish, aren't you? You have some Jewish.
It's a long story that I probably shouldn't share too much of my mom's business, but there was.
Yeah, you've told
some,
me. You've told me.
I've told you. So but there's that guilt. I've got pieces of it that my homeland guilt. You know, it's not as heavy as the Catholic, but it's also Puerto Rican. The Catholic, yeah, absolutely. But that reverence. But anyway, we have much more to discuss. But I think this is a good little stopping point.
Works for me.
And then we should have if Cam ever comes to the States, we should have you guys talk about it.
You know, Cam and I are good friends, but there was a point where Cam unfriended me on Facebook because I was putting pro-Israeli stuff on my Facebook page. So he unfriended me, which I respect a lot more than putting hate messages on my Facebook page because I would delete them.
Of course.
But and then he came and he made this grand apology to me, and he refriended me, and now he calls me sister and I call him brother, and I really love him, and it's fabulous. But it was so funny. He was like, I need to make an amends to you that I unfriended you on your Facebook page. I'm like, I didn't even notice.
Oh, yeah. That would be an interesting conversation to have the two of you. As
pro-Israeli as I am is as pro-Palestinian as he is. And we're good and we're very good friends.
Right.
And we completely disagree.
He's a good guy.
He's awesome.
Anyway, boys and girls, this has been a long, great episode. Let's see. This is coming out tomorrow. What do I have to promote? So I'm going to be playing music at Amelie Wine Bar in San Francisco on January 6th, Sunday, January 6th at 7 p.m. And I'll be down in the South Bay on January 19th at Testarossa Winery in Los Gatos between 3 and 5:30 on Saturday, January 19th. Go to patreon.com/conservatish to support the podcast and my music. Follow me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. Like us and subscribe, please, on YouTube and on iTunes. Leave us a review. Boys and girls, I really appreciate you listening. Do you have anything to... You don't have anything to promote? You're not going to be dancing in places?
Oh, yeah, that's my Raven character. No, I'm good. I have nothing to promote, but it's been absolutely awesome, and I might even come try and hear you. I'll bring you when Carl comes. We'll come hear you play.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
All right.
I love you very much.
I love you more.
All right. Bye, everybody.